Good evening, everyone. It's April 29th. This is the Board of Trustees meeting. This is our monthly agenda meeting. Today it's 6:12 p.m., calling the meeting to order and asking the clerk, Sylvia Perillo, to confirm the presence of a quorum.
Thank you. Mayor Shepro?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Ugrinsky?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Franco?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Hill?
Present.
Thank you. Trustee Giuliano?
Here.
Thank you. Mayor, as always, as almost always, we have Attorney Moran and Treasurer Gafka with us.
Okay, thank you. Can we all now please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Sing it to Kelly. All right, so we have an announcement tonight. Clerk Perillo, would you like to let everyone know what it is?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. The Caleb Brewster Armed Whaleboat Landing Event, which will be kicking off the Port Jefferson 250 celebrations, is taking place in Harborfront Park this Saturday from noon to 5 p.m. All are welcome.
All right, there are notifications and information about that landing down in the alcove entrance to Village Hall. If you're looking for more information, there's some information in the Port Jefferson Record about it. All the details are up on our website, so encourage everyone to attend. It will be truly an historic occasion,
Mayor,
or a
we have a
recreation of an historic occasion. However,
Excuse me.
yes.
My apologies. We have a correspondence as well.
Would you like to read that into the record?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
This is from the New York State Department of State, and it reads, Dear Mayor Shepro, congratulations. On behalf of Governor Hochul, I am pleased to inform you that funding has been tentatively awarded to the Incorporated Village of Port Jefferson to undertake the following project. CFA number 149536 in the amount of $50,250 for the Port Jefferson Expanded Climate Resiliency Plan. Thank you for applying to the Environmental Protection Fund Local Waterfront Revitalization Program through Round 15 of the 2025 Consolidated Funding Application. Please be advised this award is contingent upon approval by the Office of the State Controller. Staff from the New York State Department of State Office of Planning, Development, and Community Infrastructure will contact your office regarding the next steps in developing a contract work plan. Minority and women-owned business enterprise utilization goals, and other contract terms and conditions. I am pleased the State of New York is able to assist in your efforts to improve your community. Please email lwrp@dosnewyork.gov if you have any questions, and include the subject line LWRP inquiry for CFA number 149536. If you applied for funding from other programs through the REDC Round 15 initiative, you will receive information regarding those applications separately. We look forward to working with you. Sincerely, Walter T. Mosley, Secretary of State.
A letter from the Secretary of State, that's wonderful. $50,000 isn't bad. That is an extension for edification of the Department of State's, the climate resiliency plan that we just concluded with the help of Campani and Schwarting, and the Public Action Committee for that climate resiliency plan. And our grants administrator actually applied for additional funding to help us see that plan through to its complete conclusion, and they awarded us $50,000 additional to do that. So that was good news. Thank you for reading that. Now we'd like to go into public safety and welfare updates with our officer and from the Suffolk County Police. Oh, Officer Barry, come on up. And we have someone you're introducing to us today, or no?
He'll stay there. I'll tell you about him.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Poor guy on the spot.
Too late.
Yeah, right. Hi, everybody. My name is Officer Barry. I'm, oh, yeah, that's great. Thank you. There we go. We're live. We're good. Hi, everybody. My name is Officer Casey Barry. I'm a 6th Precinct Cope officer. That is one of our probationary police officers from the Suffolk County Police Academy. He's now a graduate, and he's here along with 12 other new police officers in the 6th Precinct here. So we're very happy to have him and everybody else to help us to patrol your community. So it's great. He's here tonight to see what community policing is all about.
Great.
So what I do usually is tell you guys about what crime looks like in your community here in Port Jeff Village. I'm reporting what the stats are this past month from March 25th to April 29th and what that looks like in comparison to 2025. So your total calls for service this past year is 382 in 2026, and last year was 384. So you're just off by 2 calls. That's total, all-encompassing 911 calls. And then we talk more about the more chronic type of crimes that are reported. Calls like aggravated harassment. You have one of those reported. Aggravated harassment is any sort of threat to somebody by telephone, electronic means. Assault, you had none last year, none this year. Burglary, none last year, none this year. Criminal mischief is when there's damage to property. You had 1 reported last year and 3 reported this year. So what that was one was an altercation in front of Southdown. Somebody threw their telephone, their cell phone at somebody's car window. So that was just, I think it goes to speaks to the climate where people's emotions are high. They get into it with each other, and sometimes it can unfortunately end with that. It was cleared by arrest. The person was arrested and charges were pressed by that individual. The other 2 were related to domestic situations. So domestic is any relationship between husband, wife, brother, sister, it could be boyfriend, girlfriend, where property was damaged in an altercation. Then harassments. So people sometimes think harassment is verbal. It's actually physical. There were 6 reported last year, 5 this year. Those, 4 of them were domestic in nature. Harassment's when somebody's like pushed or shoved or maybe even spit at. No injury is sustained. There was also, the 5th one was not domestic in nature, and that was an altercation that occurred outside of the pizza place right next to Dunkin' Donuts in the village. It was late hours. It was a bunch of individuals in their 20s, I think after socializing in the bars, and that is currently under investigation. It was among unknown parties. Larceny is when property is stolen, and there was 2 reported last year, 5 this year. Hold on. One was somebody who works at Mather reporting that somebody took her wallet. 3 of them were actually people who were reporting items stolen from their vehicles. So whether it was change, somebody actually lost $400, they didn't want to press charges, he didn't have a camera, or there was really no way to find out who the suspect was. But it just is a reminder of us, for all of us, to lock our cars in our driveways, lock your cars in the parking lot. You will all, somebody just checking a doorknob, a door on somebody's car. Am I not talking in the mic? Am I good? Oh, it is dead. So that was. Oh, there we go. Thank you. So again, reminder to lock your vehicles, because there are individuals in parking lots, especially like in a gym parking lot, movie theater parking lot, where you might be somewhere for a long period of time. It's definitely crimes of opportunity that always occur. And then that's all I have to report in terms of your more chronically reported crimes, menacing, robbery. Your non-criminal incidents, that means like a medical aided, a psychiatric call, check on the welfare, anything that's not related to an arrest. 362 of those were reported last year versus 346 this year. Thankfully, no overdoses. That's always nice to report. And your total number of arrests here in your community were 11 arrests this year and 6 in 2025. I wanted to mention that I received a couple complaints this week from your community regarding California Avenue. I received those via email, making up words, via email, and it was from 3 different people, so speeding and stop signs. So what I did is I created something called a patrol check for anybody who doesn't know what that is. It communicates to like our new officer here and sector car operators to make be a regular presence in that community to enforce speed and stop signs. So I'll be able to report, whoever's here next month will be able to report on how many summonses we write and how many times that we're there to be a presence on California Avenue. And then I wanted to just announce that we have our community meeting once a month. That's where our commanding officer provides crime stats for the whole of the 6th precinct. If you want to hear what it looks like in other communities in our jurisdiction, you're welcome to come to the 6th precinct on Wednesday, May 13th at 7 p.m. And that is all I have. If anybody has any
I have a question for you.
Yeah, tell me.
We had a very nice, successful Coffee with a Cop a year ago, October.
Yes. at the
Would you be
Village
interested in
Center.
coming back to do that again at the
Yes,
Village
I
Center?
would love that.
Okay,
Yes.
let's work on
That
that.
was so nice.
It was.
That
It
was great.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
well,
We'll be in touch.
Connect.
and-
Yep. Okay, good.
Absolutely.
Thank
Okay,
you.
great. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Okay. I have to say, it
two
smells
things.
lovely in here. I don't know. It smells like a spa since I walked in here. Does anybody else notice that? I walked in here, just coming in. I'm like, it smells so nice. I just wanted
I
to.
have a diffuser in my office.
It's really? That is too. I smell it.
It's permeating, I guess, the Village
Is it,
Hall.
what is it? Is it
Eucalyptus.
minty? Eucalyptus. Smells lovely.
Thank
If
you.
You wanted to
Glad
bring
you like it.
everybody's energy level.
little
I
bit.
see what you're trying to do there. Did you have something?
Yeah, two things.
yeah.
As always, getting complaints about speeding on East Broadway.
Oh, yeah, okay. I
Um,
have to see if that's still active. That might still be active. Patrol check, active
Okay.
patrol check. Okay.
And also, summertime is starting. We're getting a lot of the e-bikes and
Yes,
the kids
okay.
on the bikes and like that.
Yes, okay. And you're going to have your whiskey unit starting. I don't know if you're going to be meeting with the commanding officer about that, or if you do that. The whiskey chart starts Memorial Day weekend. So what that means for anybody who doesn't know is you'll have 2 officers who are designated to your community in the summer months, which is really nice, right straight up to Labor Day, on foot and enforcing everything, just really
Yeah.
for you guys. So that'll be starting up next month, which will be great. Thank
Well,
you for
to
bringing that up.
our Supervisor Cooper to help us orchestrate all that and get
Yeah.
that meeting together, I guess,
Yeah,
to kick off the season. That's great.
okay.
And it's good to hear that, that resident calls
Yeah,
result in patrol checks.
for sure.
So that's something to reinforce to our community, that if you call, the
Yeah.
precinct will respond.
Yeah, thank
So,
you.
thank you for reporting that.
Of course. Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Have a microphone, we'll try. Kevin brings his own.
I like this one better.
Is it working?
Yeah, it's free.
All right.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me again. Code picked up a little bit in April. We had 6 online complaints. 4 of them were anonymous. 1 for illegal rental, 4 for noise, and 1 for illegal parking. We opened up 7 code investigations during April. We had 1 for illegal rental, 3 for property maintenance. One of the properties, it was a residential property, I issued 8 notices of violation for different various violations on the property that need to be addressed. We also did, not an operation, we were asked by Lieutenant Murtha of the 6th Precinct. They were conducting a targeted enforcement operation on Upper Main Street at a business, and they asked us to come inspect the inside and outside of the business after they performed their enforcement operation. So we went in, once they secured the location, and between my code officer and the fire marshals, we ended up writing 24 field appearance tickets. There were 3 different defendants, the 2 individuals on the lease and the building owner. So they each were issued 8 field appearance tickets for various property maintenance violations, building maintenance violations, and then New York State Fire Code violations, such as no fire alarms, the exit sign's not working, the rear door of the business was blocked, with blocked access, you couldn't open it, and some other, they were running electrical with extension cords through the ceilings, which is a fire code violation. So the owner then took the keys from the 2 tenants, and they're not allowed back in, and he will rent it to hopefully better tenants in the future. So that business is now closed. So the other investigations we opened were 1 residence had a staircase built with no permit leading down their slope property, and 1 was for no fencing around an in-ground pool. We had 27 incident reports prepared by my officers during the month for various things happening, dogs on the beach, barking dogs, 6 e-bikes complaints, dead animals in the road, disabled vehicle, parking complaints, low-hanging wires, which we took care of because Optimum was about 24 hours out and they were hanging low on Main Street, so we actually tied them up, so couldn't.
Oh.
Yeah, it was actually blocking traffic, and we were backing people back down Main Street. I said, I can't do this for 24 hours, so we got on the roof and tied them up. There was a bee's nest in Harborfront Park and a ringing alarm at the yacht club. Parking tickets, we issued, as of today, for the month, we have issued 1,660 parking tickets. Last April, we issued 408, and approximately 450 of them were written for expired parking meters. And that's about it. The events we covered were the Easter Parade and the elementary school walk-run event. And we have this month the Mather walk-run coming up on the 17th of May. So that's all I have. If anybody has any questions. No? Nothing?
No questions,
All right.
trustees?
Okay. Thank you.
Guess not.
All right.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for all your hard work. Okay, Treasurer Gafka, your turn, presenting the requested modifications to the proposed fiscal year 2026-27 tentative annual budget dated March 19th, 2026. Ready?
Thank you, Mayor. So how would you like me to run through this? One by one, or the total impact, or?
Let's start with one by one and then total impact.
Okay. So the resolution, we'll start with the revenues. The resolution to modify or amend the tentative budget will start with a decrease of the revenue for property taxes of $1,366,619. An increase for revenue to parking meter fees of $780,000. An increase to cell tower rent of $8,400. An increase to miscellaneous revenue of $10,000. Then with the expenses, a decrease in the expense line item for village administrator salary by $150,000. An increase to expense line item for contingency expenses for $94,546. Decrease in code part-time salary for $25,000. Decrease in code equipment by $21,000. Decrease in parking credit card fees by $50,000. Decrease in the highway full-time salary of $80,000. An increase in the parks full-time salary of $45,309. Decrease of recreation full-time salary by $51,426. Decrease for recreation concerts of $21,000. Decrease for village center part-time by $25,000 with a corresponding increase to village center part-time guard of $25,000. Decrease of the building and planning full-time salaries for $125,000. Decrease for building and planning software expenses of $6,700. Decrease for New York State retirement expense of $46,945. Decrease of Social Security expenses by $27,535. Decrease in medical and dental benefits totaling $125,023, and an increase in accrued benefit leave by $21,555. So the effect of this would bring the tax levy to $7,634,677. which is an increase over the prior year of $526,932. It would bring the tax rate to $45.694 per 100 of assessed, which would equal an average residential increase of $203.37 and an average commercial increase of $386.87.
And what's the tax levy percent increase?
The tax levy percent increase would be 7.41%.
And what was the former tax, what was the, in the tentative budget, what was the tax levy?
Was 26, I can pull up the exact number, but it was just over
26
26%.
So that's a nice alternative proposal, I think. So, thank you for that presentation. Now, can we go into the public to address the Board of Trustees?
I have a few questions for the treasurer, if we can, before we go to public comment.
Well, I think the best way to handle that is when we go to the resolution and we go into discussion. Does that make sense?
That's fine.
Okay. So, we are opening it up to the public to address the Board of Trustees.
Good evening, Mayor and Trustees. My name is Stella Cohen, 111 Scraggy Hill Road, Port Jefferson. I'm currently the co-chair of the Village Tree Committee and the recording secretary of the Public Safety Advisory Council. I regularly listen to the broadcasts of the village board meetings, and I wish to offer my support for Trustee Ugrinsky and her work as Commissioner of Finance. Trustee Ugrinsky did not present a budget out of carelessness or disregard for our residents. I see this increase as a targeted, necessary decision to protect essential services, stabilise long-term finances, and avoid far more painful consequences down the road. Trustee Ugrinsky, along with the members of the Budget and Finance Committee, made a decision that many others would choose to avoid because it is politically unpopular. But responsible leadership sometimes requires choosing the long-term health of our community over short-term applause. This pending tax increase is an act of fiscal responsibility made in the best interests of the community. Trustee Ugrinsky and the Budget and Finance Committee acted with data-driven judgment and a commitment to protecting the quality of essential services. Leadership often requires difficult decisions, and this was certainly one of them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Patricia. Janice, I'm sorry.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, Mayor and Trustees. My name is Janice Fleischman-Eaton. I live at 23 Old Post Road East, Port Jefferson. And I'm here representing myself and two other residents of Port Jefferson, Ellie Safai and Evan Tannenbaum. I'm going to just review this letter I'm going to submit to the clerk. We're writing in request for erection of skull racks at Centennial Park Beach. Port Jefferson Harbor is widely recognized as an ideal location for rowing due to its calm waters and accessibility. For many years, there has been a rowing club comprising both adults and youth enjoying the benefits of recreational and competitive rowing in this beautiful setting. However, residents who want to row a scull do not have a rack to store them. This has made participation in the sport extremely difficult. We believe that installing simple, durable racks for scull storage at the Harborfront Eastside Beach, east of Centennial Park, would revitalize rowing activity in the area, providing residents with a healthy, environmentally friendly outdoor pursuit for youth and adults. We are open to collaborating with the village on potential design, location, and maintenance solutions for these racks. We would be glad to meet with whomever you recommend from Parks and Recreation to further discuss and plan for how this project can be brought to life in a way that enhances our community enjoyment of small water crafts. Thank you for your consideration. We hope you'll support our efforts to return sculling to the water in Port Jefferson by private residents. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Erin Patterson, and I'm a Port Jefferson resident, and I live on Princess Tree Court. First, I want to take a second to thank Trustees Franco, Giuliano, and Hill for keeping residents very informed about the proposed 41% tax rate increase. None of us want to see taxes go up, and I'm very grateful for everyone working together to mitigate that. So thank you, everybody. I'm here tonight with concerns about specific spending decisions to that budget and about transparency. So Treasurer Gafka may have covered my first question to a partial extent. There was something in here about, there was some sort of decrease by $105,000. Was that specific to an additional assistant for the village center?
We're going to have that discussion during our resolution agenda, but this is public comment session. It's the format is really not to go back and forth, and then we can comment at the end of
well,
the
then I'll
public.
just read my script, and if it's
Perfect.
a little
And we'll
outdated,
comment when
I
everybody's
sincerely
done
apologize.
speaking to the trustees can comment at the end. There's a chance to respond to specific questions.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Mhm.
So at the April 7th and 8th meetings, the board discussed adding an additional assistant to the village center manager, who already has an assistant. At the April 7th meeting, Treasurer Gafka stated the proposed cost of this additional assistant would be $51,426 in salary, with approximately $52,000 on top of that in benefits. I'm asking the board to confirm what the $52,000 represents, since a benefits load of that size on that salary is actually pretty unusual, and to understand that residents are entitled to know exactly what we're being asked to fund. So the total fully loaded cost appears to be in the range of $103,000 to $105,000, which aligns with the figure Trustee Franco referenced on April 8th. Trustee Franco also on April 8th asked very reasonably for a business plan to support that approximate $105,000 hire. He asked for data showing how the position would generate revenue exceeding its cost. The mayor agreed to provide a business plan. So my first question tonight, super straightforward, was that business plan ever provided? And what was the final outcome of that decision? So separately on April 8th, the mayor raised a possibility of a third hire, a union position that would be focused mainly on marketing for the village center and coordinating preferred vendors. And I'd like to understand the status of that proposal as well. I want to be super clear about my concern. It's not the village center manager's salary. The salary for that role is approximately $104,000 plus $55,000 in benefits, and residents are entitled to know those figures, including benefits, before the mayor characterizes them publicly as inadequate. My concern to the proposal is to add headcount. Staffing decisions should be made on the compensation of the person being supported. They should be based off demonstrated need and off the revenue a position will generate or the cost it will offset. The manager already has an assistant. The camps that justify much of this proposal brought in just under $100,000 last year and have been run for the past 12 years with the current level of staffing. A country club representative, I believe this was at the April 8th meeting, publicly stated that the golf course and driving range used for these camps would be somewhat limited. And the mayor stated that the village center was not created to make money. So if that is true, residents need to understand why we are now adding cost on the premises of revenue that has not been demonstrated. I also have a couple of other questions about spending. The village pays Social Butterfly $400 a month for social media presence, yet there is not remarkably much. Is there evidence that this expense is driving revenue? And the same vendor is paid $30 an hour to manage village records, but I've asked the trustees, and they can't tell me when that work was performed or what the role is necessarily. There was also a hiring of 2 interns at $20 an hour. roughly $800 a week combined. So I'm curious, what is the hiring process? What are their duties? And what specific needs are they fulfilling at this time?
Which roles?
This would be for the 2 interns that were hired. So I'm not opposed at all to investing in good people and good services. I've lived here my whole life. I am opposed to adding cost without a clear case for the value it returns, and I'm opposed to characterizing employee compensation or staffing needs publicly without disclosing the underlying numbers and the underlying business case. To that end, I'm respectfully requesting that the board adopt a motion tonight or at the next meeting directing the village clerk to publicly disclose the items detailed in the formal request I am submitting to the court clerk for the record. Thank you so much.
The court clerk?
I'm sorry, the village clerk.
Okay.
I apologize.
We don't have to answer them tonight. We have time to research and get back to you. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, I would love to have an answer.
Well, I think this takes a little bit of research, right? To put it informal. We'll work on it. We'll
Okay,
we'll
thank
respond
you
to your
so much. I
request. Yep.
appreciate it.
We have Carl coming up next, Marion. Marion. Marilyn. God. Nobody's name's right tonight.
Mayor, trustees, my name's Carl Jansen. I'm at 26 Woodside Avenue in Port Jefferson, and I'm also a member of the Budget and Finance Committee. And to my left, I have...
Hi, my name is Renee Tidwell. I'm also a member of the Budget and Finance Committee. My residence is 1109 Main Street.
Great. I just wanted to come and kind of introduce us as members of the committee. I don't think I could say anything better than what you said, honestly. I agree with everything you said. The Budget and Finance Committee, I guess, started 2.5 years ago. When we started, we had a negative fund balance. Basically means your liabilities are greater than your assets. Couldn't get a clean opinion from our auditors on our financial statements. We had issues with government auditing standards. I think Mr. Gafka actually walked into a financial, kind of like, I don't want to say mess, but a challenge. And over the last 2.5 years, the members of the committee, along with Zena, have actually, worked to move the village forward in a way that it will arrive at a fiscally sound footing. And we believe that the budget, as we initially had it prepared, was going to get us there. It was kind of like step 3, step 4 in getting us to a financially sound footing. And I understand that there were some comments about, hey, you guys didn't include us. We didn't know that you're looking at such a high increase. And honestly, we're village residents, and we don't want to pay more taxes. Who wants to pay more taxes? But I think the process that the treasurer had gone through, including the people who were making decisions about hiring and making projections about revenues and where were expenses going to go, it was a very lengthy process that he undertook, one that I don't think really had happened in the past. So people would own it, and he would go back to those people and say, hey, you know what, we really can't, that tax increase was after the treasurer already asked people, hey, you got to cut this thing down. You got to get, we can't go that high, even though we came in very high. But it was our opinion, and that was the best budget to get us where we need to be. And I think it's easy to cut, but then when snow isn't removed, or your garbage isn't picked up, or the leaves aren't picked up, going to be reflected because we might not have bodies in place, or crime rates start to go up because you don't have the people in place that you need. It wasn't something that we did lightheartedly. We took it very seriously. We knew it was going to be a fight, but we thought, let's have the fight now, because if we don't have the fight now, we're just going to have it next year. It wasn't done carelessly, and we knew it was going to cost us money too, and we knew it was going to be a tough sell, and I understand it's a tough sell to the village residents, but nobody wants to give up, services in the village that we all love. So I really think, we'll do what we need to do to get a budget passed so we can keep moving forward. But we just don't want to stub our toe on something, have another winter like we just had, and have to scramble to find money to pay vendors. We need contingencies. We're told we need contingencies. We need money on the side that, would help us in those types of situations. We don't have that right now. And we honestly thought by preparing this budget and presenting it, it's a very strong step in getting us to the financial footing that we needed. And I think by cutting some of these things, it's going to affect services, it's going to affect quality of life, and it doesn't get us those contingency funds that we might need in case something comes down the pike that we don't foresee. It's hard. Sometimes you got to make those decisions that are not popular, but it gets you to the long-term goal that you're really seeking. And that's it. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. I really don't have much to add, other than that every time the Budget and Finance Committee has met, we've always met with some overriding themes. One is, how are we investing in our community? How are we preparing for the future? We've got the immediate things that we need to do, and we need to address. Parking was one of the things that we discussed early on. But how do we invest in the future? How do we help our village invest in its employees? And that has always been one of the major drivers in looking at this. And one of the other major drivers was, how do we prepare? How do we mitigate risk? And that was always getting back to, how do we start to build our contingency funds? Again, I'm going to use my experience on the school board, knowing that they've got their a very healthy reserve fund system, if you will. And not that I wanted to think that we could get to that amount that the school district has, but knowing that you've got healthy reserves will help us in the future, and again, invest in our future and mitigate the risk going forward. So, thank you.
Thank you. You can put it down on the rest,
Okay.
yeah. Thank you for your comments. Marilyn? Microphone.
It is, thank you so much for having us here. I am going to stick to the script today. The Port Jefferson Civic Walkability Committee would like to ask for an update.
Ma'am, I hate to interrupt. Could you state your name and address for the record?
Yes, I'm sorry. Marilyn Ramirez Damascus, 601 Scraggy Hill Road, Port Jeff. Thank you. The Port Jefferson Civic Walkability Committee would like to ask for an update on the Safe Streets for All grant that we were told the mayor and the trustees approved to make an application. We would also just we have heard that the village might be pursuing a different grant instead. We would like to note that our committee has spent this past year looking for ways to fund new sidewalks in the village and focused on the Safe Streets for All grant, because it seems there are not many alternatives. This grant is allocating a lot of money, but it is the last year of the grant. In this work, we learned that the village should have a pedestrian safety action plan in place to prioritize projects for future funding. Sidewalks are only part of such a plan that deals with a number of possible issues related to safety. We hope that the village will apply for this grant to create such a plan. And that is from the entire Walkability Committee. Thank you for listening, and I think you have a letter on file for that.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you, Mayor.
Hold on, Bruce.
Okay, that's all.
As part of, besides the initiatives, we would like to consider having an annual budget for sidewalks constructions. This would be a valuable element in the pedestrian safety action plan. For instance, as part of the Haydick Engineering Downtown Walkability Study that proposed a sidewalk along Caroline Avenue and Joe Erlin Park at a cost of $152,210. We see this as a possible phase of one of two-phase project. The second phase would be Brook Road extending the Caroline Avenue sidewalk to the high school athletic field and going to the Old Post Road sidewalks that goes to the high school. An annual budget of approximately $200,000 for sidewalk implementations would allow this and other priority projects to enhance walkability in the village. Please always keep this in yearly budgets moving forward. It can only enhance our village. Thank you. Okay.
Is that a total of $352,000?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Marilyn.
Good evening. My name is Bruce Miller. I live at 18 Waters Edge Way. I want to thank the mayor and Trustee Ugrinsky for their transparency and their openness. The mayor, when she was first elected, created a number of committees which opened up the public. I was glad to see that Ms. Tidwell is on the Finance and Budget Committee. She did an excellent job with the school district. We're facing a lot of increase in costs here. We also had issues from the past that were brought forth and put upon this board. We had a lot of cuts. There's tree cutting, maintenance. The trustees have even given up their salaries. I want to thank everyone for, everybody pulling on the rope and trying to do what's right for the village in a time of crisis. I was on the school board for 12 years, president, vice president, chairman of the 2 library committees, new science labs. But what I did was I had founded the effort to repower LIPA, which I could see was going to be an issue. We are dealing with the glide path, as they euphemistically refer to it, with a lot of funding coming out of our tax revenue. Just a small piece of history. When Lilco filed the original certiorari's, Mario Cuomo negotiated with Lilco, LIPA, the Shoreham Wading River School District, Brookhaven Town, and Suffolk County, those three entities would have been bankrupted without the settlement. Part of the settlement was that there would be no future certiораries. And yet we have a decision by a judge that we would have certiораries and that we would suffer great losses in revenue. This is part of our problem. Another part of our problem is the fact I was on the Board of Trustees for 8 years, and a lot of information was kept from the trustees at that time. And as a result, completely hidden was the bluff issue. And I was on the Conservation Advisory Committee on and off for about 30 years, and that committee had no part and was not informed. But also, there were a lot of funding issues, shell games, if you want to call them that were kept from the board at that time. And this is what we're dealing with today. So we have a very difficult situation. I support what is being done. The essential question is, do we want to have a village? I mean, we have to do things that look forward and cause that to happen. I absolutely support having a village government, and we're going to have a difficult year, but there's a better future ahead. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, Mayor and trustees. My name is Andy Whitrock. I live at 20 Corey Court. I want to discuss a little bit, briefly, block parties. Summer's coming up, and my street has been fortunate past 2 years to have a block party on it. I would say that I am, although I have not been involved with planning and I have not really been a participant, I think it's a good thing and I'm supportive of it. But I've made a few observations, and I've done a little bit of internet investigation on how some other municipalities handle them. And I'd like to make just a couple of those observations and maybe some suggestions noted. One is that I think a block party should be limited to a block. What's happened, at least where I am, is it's the entire length of the street, which is, in our case, 2 blocks, plus an intersection in between. I think that 99.9% of the activity happens within just the space of a couple of properties, a couple of homes, and the rest of the street is completely unused. Having the intersection blocked off becomes a potential safety hazard. When the Corey Court, where I live, one end of it is a cul-de-sac or a dead end. When the intersection in front of that is completely blocked off, and unfortunately sometimes cars park behind the barriers, so even moving the barriers wouldn't open up the street, no emergency vehicles could get through. Additionally, sometimes they use the actual intersection for activities like a foam party, and you can't clear the foam quickly to be sure that there's no little kids stuck in the foam if you need to get an emergency vehicle through. So my suggestion with regard to that is absolutely have the block party, just limit it to a block without covering intersections. One other concern that I have, and it's honestly more for some of the other residents that live, some of my neighbors who I have spoken with but honestly are not comfortable speaking up, is that there seems to be no provision for residents who may have some disabilities to get in and out. There's no provision to move the barricades. As a matter of fact, I was told we can't move the barricades. On my end of the street, there's at least 3 80-year-old people, a couple of others approaching that landmark, There's at least 2 who are disabled. And on the day of the block party, they can't leave their house. They can't drive, they can't walk, even if they have someone park their cars around the block outside of the area. It's too far for them to travel. And so they're effectively trapped in their home. So my request would be, by all means, approve block parties. I think it's a great thing for the community. But include in that a provision that A, maybe a smaller area, and B, allow people that or allow disabled people, and I'm not sure what the law says about that. Perhaps our attorney, would comment on that. I don't know if that falls under the ADA Act or not. It just seems to fall under common sense to me, though. So I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Rosario Lazaro, 211 North Country Road. Just for clarification on the revenue side of the budget, my understanding, and since it was brought up this evening, it used to be LICO, now it's LIPA, now it's PSE&G. So, not PSE&G? Okay, so a couple of years ago, I thought there was a decrease in the amount of tax they were paying because they weren't going to use the center. And now I read recently that they're going to increase in use of the center. So is that a potential revenue stream or not?
Is that your only question?
Yes.
Okay, we'll respond to it after all comments are received.
Hi, my name is Randy DeWitt. I live at 110 Rustic Road. So first, I'd like to say that I appreciate the work of the Budget and Finance Committee, especially since you're volunteers, and you obviously give up your own time. And I know how difficult that can be personally when you're a volunteer, so thank you to those volunteers. I understand the need for building reserve funds. However, I believe that they should be built up over a number of years instead of just kind of shoving them all into one budget year. An issue I had with the initial proposed budget was more about the process of it and the addition of 4 new positions added to the budget, which included salaries as well as obviously benefits too, which we know are exorbitant at this time. So I don't think this is the time to add new positions to a budget that is in distress. But after listening to Treasurer Gafka's report at the start of the meeting, it seems like that has been addressed, which I'm thankful for. My other issue with the budget was in regard to transparency. So I hope that in the future, the process for informing residents and including all trustees in the budgetary decisions becomes a priority, because I really believe that transparency is paramount, especially since we live in such a small community. It's important, and I feel like it's easy to reach people. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Right now it's time for trustee comments, so I'll start with some of the low-hanging fruit from the questions that were asked by our public. The first thing I'd like to address is Marilyn Damascus's statement on the SS4A grant. We've been talking about that application process and what goes into it and what it actually, what municipalities are eligible for. And I'd like to read to you from our, the expert on this, which is our grants administration consultant, to give you more insight about this grant. So I'll just start from the beginning. I'll just read this into the record. Regarding the Port Jefferson Civic Association Walkability Committee's letter dated April 13th, I have completed a careful analysis of the SS4A grant requirements. The committee recommends applying for an SS4A planning and demonstration grant to create a pedestrian safety action plan. However, SS4A guidelines require a more comprehensive action plan focused on preventing roadway fatalities and serious injuries system-wide. The plan must cover all key roadways and address the safety of pedestrians, motorists, and bicyclists, similar to the Brookhaven Vision Zero plan that was shared by our administrator previously. Without an approved comprehensive plan that meets these specific criteria, the village would be ineligible for future SS4A implementation project funds, such as sidewalk installations prioritized by the committee. If the village chooses to proceed with the application, please be aware of the following estimated requirements and costs. Application process costs, approximately $19,000. Grant consultant, 40 hours at $100 an hour, $4,000 for data research on fatality rates, underserved community metrics, and budget forms. Engineering consultants, 40 hours at $375 an hour equals $15,000 to determine necessary studies, planning activities, and estimates for the Vision Zero plan development. Post-award requirements, matching funds. The village must provide a 20% match for the grant awards, typically range from $100,000 to $5 million. So 20% of between $100,000 and $5 million. Action Plan Committee. The village must establish a committee to work with a paid consultant similar to the New York State Department of State Climate Resiliency Plan process. Oversight. A dedicated village representative, employee, or trustee would be required to chair this committee and oversee the project. Period. So, does that still seem, I guess my question is rhetorical, but it's an expensive enterprise, time-consuming, requires someone to administer it. I don't know if one of our trustees would like to volunteer for that role, to lead the Public Action Committee. So it's either a trustee or an employee. And right now we don't have a village administrator who would be doing this, so that would be a challenge. So I'm just giving you, there are other opportunities for to address walkability, which we have done with the Downtown Revitalization Initiative grant, which we're waiting to hear back from the state on, and which HADUC has been working with us on, and we can plan around that, but it does not have to be through this grant application. It's extremely, what's the word? Arduous and time-consuming. So the grant application is due in, I think she said June? May? May 24th. And so that's less than a month to get all of that work done. So that's a big upfront fee. We're in the middle of a budget crisis, and we're hearing from our trustees and the public that there is no appetite for spending on something like this. So let's plan for contingencies in the future. So Janice, if you have more to say, just put it in writing to us and we'll continue the conversation. It's not, we don't have to decide on this today, but these are the factors that go into this grant. With regard to the block parties, Dr. Whitrock, we will certainly speak with any applicants that come through and talk about those concerns, and I think you bring up some valid points, so thank you for bringing that to the board. We will definitely get back to Ms. Patterson about all of her questions comprehensively. The rowing skull racks, what we learned in the process of all of this, where the skull racks are now located on the yacht club property, correct? Is that true? I do know that. They are located on the yacht club property. They have been. Okay, either way, we learned that that beach is the property of the town of Brookhaven. It is not included in our lease with the town on Centennial Park. So we're working with the town right now on trying to amend that lease, and they are interested in doing that, but it's not our property right now to make that decision. But we're working towards it, so know that.
Mayor, if I just expand on that.
Okay.
It was also important to mention at this point that the previous rowing club, or possibly somebody else, possibly, allegedly, cleared property that is protected or private. And the tone of the meeting was, until we get that new lease depicting the area owned by the town of Brookhaven, which is to be leased to us, whether or not a revegetation of that area needs to take place as well. And then once that line is delineated, where do we put possible additional racks?
Thank you. Mr. Lazaro? The LIPA, actually, National Grid owns that property. LIPA pays us the tax, that's the taxable entity, correct? Treasurer Gafka? So we did read in Newsday that they are looking at repowering the 3 power plants on Long Island, and renovating them, potentially. That's a long-term proposition. We don't know what the outcome of that will be. But what we do know, and I'll look to my right with Deputy Mayor Ugrinsky, who has been working closely on this, the repowering and getting a seat at the table with the power plant and through the power plant working group to discuss the way that they are looking at assessing that property. Do you want to talk about that for a minute?
Sure. So you guys have heard me discuss the hydrogen pilot in Northport. The ultimate goal is to bring that in a production capacity to Port Jeff for a number of reasons. We are one of the only 2 deep water ports on Long Island. The other one is Freeport, which is not a candidate for this. We're working with NYSERDA, National Grid Ventures. The governor's office is aware of this. And LIPA at this point is also a part of those discussions, finally. So that is directionally where it's going. We are going to investigate any other avenues that we have for reassessing the property the power plant sits on, particularly if they shift from the current assessment procedure to something that is being adopted nationally by many, many utilities. It seems to be rolling across the United States, I would say, where it is an output-based and a time-based assessment of the utility itself. So there are a number of, let's call them work streams, that are in process that will hopefully accelerate the opportunity to reassess as opposed to waiting 5 years for the end of the quote-unquote glide path extension, as it were.
Our assessor has stated that the only way we can request a new assessment of that property is if something changes on the property,
right,
whether that's a physical change or a
regulatory change.
Yeah. So we're looking into it
and staying on top of it.
Okay, those are the only responses I have based on the public comment tonight. I just want to also give a shout out and a debt of gratitude is owed to the Budget and Finance Committee, because I'm a layperson in that regard. These people are not. This is their career, this is their profession. They are on this committee because of their expertise and their interest in understanding and maintaining fiscal responsibility for the village. And they put in the time, 2 or 3 meetings a month. It's unreal, the time and dedication that this committee has entertained and participated in. Luckily, thank goodness for Teams, so everybody can be sitting at home eating dinner while they're in these meetings, but we really appreciate it. So thank you. Trustee Franco?
Good evening. I have an unbelievable announcement. Brian Fitzpatrick, one of our residents, has been just called up to the Milwaukee Brewers tonight and might be in the game tonight. So big shout out to John and Mary Fitzpatrick and the whole family. This is a fantastic, I just got the news. I'm so excited for them. He's a great young man, and hopefully he has a tremendous career. All right.
That's Mike Fitzpatrick's nephew, right? The assemblyman?
I believe so.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Thanks for the info.
Yeah, I think his cousin, who pitched at Maine with my son, is with the Chicago Cubs. So yeah, that good genes in the family.
Good genes.
So
very tall people.
They're very, very tall, very tall. Ms. Patterson, no, I never received a business plan in relation to hiring the assistant person or any of. I never also didn't receive any other additional data that would support that hire. So yeah, just to answer your question, that never came. The other thing is you had mentioned something about Butterfly with $400. That's $400 the golf course pays. If I'm correct, Treasurer Gafford, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the village pays an additional $3,000 a month to Butterfly. Am I correct on that, Treasurer Gafford?
Yeah.
All right, so I just wanted to make sure that the numbers are accurate.
Is that just social media, or what else does that entail?
The 400 is social media for the country club. The 3,000 is for social media presence for the general fund. Yes, just social media for those two numbers.
So when you say country club, you mean the golf course or
the country? Yes, the PJCC fund.
Gotcha. Okay, fair enough. I don't want people to get confused.
To be clear,
because there always seems to be conflating those two properties as one. The second, Ms. Tidwell brought up an excellent point that the school district developed a reserve. And I happened to sit down with Mr. Lester to go over their reserve. And they did that over multiple years to develop this reserve. They didn't do it in one budget cycle. So, but again, they took their time and methodically built up reserves that they are now able to utilize, in a fashion that we currently are unable to do because we don't have reserves like that. So, and to the Budget and Finance Committee, it is not an easy chore what you were tasked with. But not to be redundant, to go back to the process, we have work session meetings that none of the information you guys were discussing was brought forward to us. And that is the failure in the process. And the reason we have work sessions is to discuss exactly what you're talking about, not to be surprised with I think it was either rip the Band-Aid off or pull the Band-Aid off. I drove here today and gas was $4.39 a gallon. And food prices are astronomical. And we have many people in our community on fixed incomes. I think as I look out here, many of us don't have those problems. But do we not, as an administration, have to take care of the people that need help to be taken care of? The people that can afford a 41% increase to pull the Band-Aid off, well, that's not reflective on the entire community because we do have an elderly population. We have multiple people on fixed incomes and that are retired that can't afford to pull a Band-Aid off. So again, we are going forward, put procedures in place that when the Budget Committee is developing their budget, and every month, I'm hoping that we get this process in place, we will be updated on every department's budget and where they stand. So, and I think that will help going forward, keeping the entire board informed. And again, I don't mean to be redundant about this process because I know, listen, it seems like it's them versus us or us versus them. It's not. But when you're given an hour to look at a $13 million budget, that's unacceptable. When you're given a half an hour to look at a $4 million budget, again, that's unacceptable. When you're not given the budget to take home and send in amendments, unacceptable. So again, there was failures in this process. No one is saying we don't want to get reserves. No one is saying we don't want to have sidewalks in our community. No one's saying that. But we're saying the process has to be better than what happened. So going forward, we are going to fix that process. This won't happen again. I can guarantee the community that. And again, I thank the Budget and Finance Committee. It's not easy to come up and step up here and say, hey, I want to charge you guys 41% more on your tax rate. That's not easy to say. It's rough, but it's our responsibility to say, wait a second. Yes, that's a good idea, but there's a lot of people in this community that can't afford it. So, again, thank you guys for what you brought, but hopefully by the end of today we'll have a budget that can meet the needs of the community, because as far as I understand, we are not having services reduced or cut, just maybe slight adjustments. And we won't raise people's taxes 41%. So, thank you.
Trustee Hill?
Just in response to the SS4A grant, you know that I brought it to the work session earlier this month. There was consensus among the board. After the recommendation came from the grants administrator, there was no further discussion among the board. I had a difference of opinion on what we should do next, but it was decided. Over email, I'll add.
What did you think should be done differently?
I think we could have found a way forward.
Okay, I just learned about all these costs associated with it. Were you aware of all those costs associated with it?
Lisa sent an email about her recommendation was to not pursue it, and you quickly responded to her saying, let's do your recommendation.
And then she looked into it more. She attended the webinar, which was recently, and learned all this detail. So then she asked us, what do we think? So I'm not making that determination. We still have an opportunity to pursue it. But just, there are financial ramifications on that. So I'm asking you, do you want to administer it? Do you want to be the person who like Rebecca did for the Department of State grant? Would you like to be the person that actually administers the grant?
Well, I don't think I'm going to be in a position where I can.
And that's the problem.
Not because I wouldn't.
It'd be great to get it, but who's going to go through all those It's a very time-intensive.
I understand that, but you said it would have to be an employee or it would have to be an employee or a trustee. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not in anybody's scope right now of employees, because we don't have an administrator. And there is a limit on how much the grant, we have a 40-hour limit on the grants administrator's role. And there's also a restriction on, she's retired from state. So there's only so much money she can make a year due to whatever. So that's not an option. So it's a great idea. I'm not sure we're ready for it. I think there are a couple things that we need to do before we even apply for this to make us eligible to receive it. There's a lot of work, a lot of research. I mean, I read that to you. You understand, like, how many fatalities have we had in Port Jefferson and can we commit to that? All those factors are research intensive. So I think it's a great grant, but like the Department of State grant for climate resiliency, that we saw that in action. You saw that in action. You participated in a lot of those meetings. So you know what it takes, and Rebecca knew what it took to get that to where it was. And then when Lisa came in, she was able to kind of bring that home with help from our engineering firm. So
the only thing I'll add, we also have a budget amendment to the existing budget today. We'll discuss that impact on sidewalks later too.
Trustee Giuliano?
So, Mr. Whitrock. Doctor, oh, I'm sorry. I think in the application you talked about the cars blocking the intersections. I think in the application it says that you cannot use cars to block the intersection, so that has to be looked at, but has to be adhered to, so. But you brought up a good point, so, you know, we'll have to look into that before we approve the block parties. And just a general comment about the budget, I just want to, this was a long process. This was a hard process. I want to thank all the hard work that was done by the Budget and Finance Committee. This board worked very hard on getting a budget out that I think is palatable. And you know, Stephen, thank you very much for all the work that you did on this and all the stress that you went through putting this together. But I think when all is said and done, we're going to have something that is, again, palatable for the village residents as far as cost-wise and also as far as services. As Trustee Frankel said, we're not looking to cut any services. So it's a process. It's something that we, you know, this is the first year, and I think we're going to have to work, you know, a couple of years just to get where we should be. But to get it all done in 1 year is probably not doable, but you know, we have a roadmap now. We know where we want to go, and you know, hopefully we know how to get there. So I want to just thank everybody for all the hard work that they put into this. Nobody took anything that was done lightly, and you know, we'll get there. So I just want to thank everybody for all the hard work that went into putting the whole budget process together.
Thank you. Trustee Ugrinsky?
So, Ms. Patterson, first of all, the village center manager or assistant manager, that role has been removed from the current budget. So, just wanted to make sure that was noted. Carl, you have completely understated the work that happened after last Friday's trustee work session, right? So, and I think it's important to share that with the public. So for those of you who watched the work session, we were effectively going down to an austerity budget. Okay, we were starting from ground zero and then maybe going up a little bit. And when we met with the Budget and Finance Committee Monday, they were adamant about the fact that that would be creating a potential death spiral financially for the village, and that the prudent approach would be to take the tentative budget and see if we could whittle that down in order to preserve the operating expenses that each department would need to operate effectively for the foreseeable future. The other thing I wanted to note about, and that conversation spurred a lot of work. First of all, I don't know how many iterations the trustee had to go through for each of the conversations that we as trustees had to try to get this budget that has just been presented to you in place. But from my perspective, it respects the needs of the employees of the village in order to allow them to continue delivering services. I will say the department heads are all stepping up. For example, Renee Lemmerman, in this situation where she is not getting that village center assistant manager, has now looked at her organization structure and found a way to reallocate labor in order to free up some of the folks who would be then more able to spend time trying to deliver additional revenue, right? So that's just one example. Ms. DeWitt. So we are not shoving all of the contingency into 1 year. We've never been shoving all the contingency into 1 year. We have two problems to solve. We have a $1.2 million deficit that we've been carrying from the prior administration, and we have decreasing revenues and increasing expenses. So there are two pressures that we are facing on the budget, and that's why we were talking about doing a 3 to 5 year budget so that we can figure out how to address that $1.2 million shortfall. We have got to get that down. It impacts our cost of funds when we borrow money, and that 5 year plan will get us to a place where New York State will look at us and say, yep, you are a healthy village and you are beginning to build a contingency. The salaries that were the issues that you mentioned have, a number of them have been removed. So the assistant supervisor for DPW, the rec position that we discussed, the village administrator, which I am a little concerned about because that is the person who really holds our vendors' feet to the fire, and our clerk already has a job. So, we need somebody besides our mayor doing that work. And then I just wanted to, and I'm glad you're here, Ms. DeWitt, because 3 of the Board of Trustees came in a month ago and made some, I call it offensive comments about my integrity, so I do have a statement to read with your permission. Okay.
It's your time.
I want to address statements made at the last public meeting that suggested I, together with the treasurer, deliberately misled the public about the tax cap override and our budget situation. First, my work on the village's finances has been focused on one thing: putting our fiscal house in order by putting the finances on a solid, transparent footing after years in which they were not. Over the last 3 years, we have effectively cleaned up roughly a decade of financial mismanagement, opaque record keeping. Our audits are now current. All the deficiencies have been corrected. The books are finally in order. Only now are we in a real position to do strategic multi-year forecasting and manage forward instead of constantly reacting after the fact. So don't shoot the messenger. What we are reacting to now is the impact of that cleanup, combined with forces we do not control: newly negotiated union contracts, higher benefit requirements, continuing reductions in LIPA-related revenue. Those are largely not under our control. They show up all at once in the tax levy, and they would create pressure on the cap no matter who was sitting in these seats. Some have claimed that because we understood those pressures early, treating the tax cap override resolution as routine was deceptive. That is simply wrong. Under New York's tax cap law, authorizing the option to exceed the cap is a standard lawful tool that many local governments use when non-discretionary costs may make a strict 2% limit mathematically impossible without cutting deeply into core services. As evidenced by the work that followed on all of our parts, from department heads to the trustees, the work would always have continued long after that vote. In January and February, we had directional information on major cost drivers, but we had not yet completed the hours of public work sessions, line item cuts that ultimately shaped both the tentative budget and the resulting budget that we are voting on today. We are looking to remedy that through adjusting the process accordingly so we have greater insight. Thank you, Matt and Kyle, for bringing that up as a group prior to that vote. This has been the most transparent budget process this village has ever had. The initial all-volunteer finance committee recommendations, the department head sessions, on camera, in public, detailed explanations of non-discretionary drivers, clear acknowledgement of how past corrections and external contracts will affect this year's budget. None of the comments at our last meeting identified a single false statement made by me or the treasurer at our last, but were merely criticizing process and timing, which some incorrectly turned into attacks on my character. The truth is, we are now looking at a correction to the procedure and the issues to resolve those timing and communication timing issues. I will always welcome good faith, fact-based questions about the numbers, the assumptions, or the timeline. I will not accept false or politically motivated attacks on my personal integrity. My objective has been and remains to protect and enhance this village by cleaning up the past, confronting the hard math created by contracts, benefits, LIPA, and building a long-term plan that manages forward instead of lurching from crisis to crisis. Personal attacks will not change the facts, and they will not deter me from insisting on honesty, transparency, and responsible long-range planning for Port Jefferson and our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Having concluded trustee comments, we are now going into action on agenda items. Led by our clerk, Sylvia Perillo.
Thank you, Mayor. With that, we have resolution number 142926, which is a resolution amending the fiscal year 2020.
Sylvia.
Yes.
Can you please bring that microphone as close to your nose as possible without it interfering in your process?
Okay. We'll try that again.
Thank you.
Resolution number 142926, resolution amending the fiscal year 2026-2027 tentative annual budget dated March 19th, 2026, as follows. Decrease revenue line item A, 1001, real property taxes by $1,366,619. Increase revenue line item A, 1740, metered parking by $780,000. Increase revenue line item A, 2410003, cell tower rent by $8,400. Increase revenue line item A, 277, miscellaneous revenue by $10,000. Decrease expense line item A, 1230.1, village administrator salary by $150,000. Increase expense line item A, 1990.4, contingency expenses by $94,546. Decrease expense line item A, 3120.12, code part-time by $25,000. Decrease expense line item A, 3120.2, code equipment by $21,000. Decrease expense line item A, 3320.402, parking credit card fees by $50,000. Decrease expense line item A, 5110.1, highway full-time salary by $80,000. Increase expense line item A, 7110.1, parks full-time salary by $45,309. Decrease expense line item A, 7140.1, recreation full-time salary by $51,426. Decrease expense line item A, 7140.43, recreation concerts by $21,000. Decrease expense line item A, 7145.12, village center part-time by $25,000. Increase expense line item A, 7145.121, village center part-time guard by $25,000. Decrease expense line item A, 8020.1, building planning full-time by $125,000. Decrease expense line item A, 8020.445, building planning software by $6,700. Decrease expense line item A, 9010.8, New York State retirement by $46,945. Decrease expense line item A, 9030.8, Social Security expenses by $27,535. Decrease expense line item A, 9060.8, medical benefit by $125,023. And finally, increase expense line item A, 9089.8, accrued benefit leave by $21,555. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Sorry, Treasurer, does this still include all of the cuts that were agreed on at our initial additional budget meeting?
These are revised cuts and amendments, so no. It does have some of them with the code equipment, with some of those changes, but this is different from 7 and 8 that were discussed at that meeting and the one prior.
Trustee Hill, that's kind of what I was alluding to in my comment or response to Carl Jansen. We went from paring everything down, including taking, eliminating a printer that the village court clerk needs, and we landed in 7 and 8 on what I consider to be an austerity budget. And the remarks I made in response to Carl Jansen's, or to the Budget and Finance Committee's work on Monday night, really reversed that. So instead of cutting at paper, for example, and just really whittling everything down to where we were on a razor's edge. If anything had gone wrong, we would have had to borrow money. We could have been in a very bad credit situation that would have caused our cost of funds to skyrocket and further hurt our bond rating. So the tentative budget that we discussed, that this represents, does include many of the things that we discussed as a group in order to get the tentative budget down, but it does not include every item in the 402 that we whittled down, and we can certainly talk to, what those were. But materially, this preserves as much as possible of the operating funds for the village to function.
It took
Okay,
the
so
average
in the
tax
spirit
increase.
of
It took the average tax increase.
That's not the question I'm asking. So in the spirit of transparency, how about we go through everything that was agreed upon, but then was taken out since our last meeting?
Yeah, we can do that.
It takes the average tax increase per
That's not the
household.
question.
I am
That's not
saying
the
it though,
question.
Kyle. It's a discussion, and we're all allowed to speak. $646 average increase per household a year to $203 increase per household a year, which includes non-discretionary increase that is approximately, what do I want to say, 75 or 80% of that amount? Austerity is not the answer. You might think it is, but you're not going to have to operate in an austerity fund.
To say that we have the most transparent process ever, then to backtrack on things that I thought we already agreed on in the last meeting with no clear explanation that actually happened. I can't continue to explain why this process is so frustrating.
I'm going to join Trustee
Kyle,
Hill.
Today
Kyle,
at
you and I
12:30 in the
had a
middle of the workday.
conversation.
I'm going to join Trustee Hill on this one. I got notified of these changes
There should be a
about
line
2
item of
hours
all the
before this
changes.
meeting, maybe 3 hours before this meeting took place. And now I'm finding out that all the hard work we put in to cut the budget is now been cut out unilaterally again by Trustee Ugrinsky, and because we have reductions that we agreed upon. And now, without notification, they've been taken out and adjustments have been made without us agreeing on what we're going to vote on. I mean, it's just,
We
and I
agreed-
keep trying to
hang
say
on.
to everybody,
Let me-
this
let
is,
me-
Zena, I'll let you talk in a second,
All
Zena.
right.
And again, this is not an attack on Zena. This is, again, a tax on the process. And the process should be, not 3 hours before the meeting, you send us what you've decided is going to be the final budget.
That's
just
not what
how it should
happened,
work.
though. That's not actually what
Well,
happened.
no, what happened was the
My
original budget was
conversation-
supposed to be another 16% increase, and they were
My-
going to hire administrators and all other people. But the truth is, I said absolutely not. I said I'm not doing it.
So I said.
So, and there you go.
Okay. So I spoke with Trustee Giuliano yesterday. I spoke with Trustee Hill today at lunchtime. And immediately following, I sent you everything that was discussed. And I understand that you were at a doctor's appointment with your wife. Right? But, you know, if you were waiting, you might have read it.
It's Wednesday. You had the meeting with the budget committee on Monday. Why are you telling me on 3 hours before tonight's vote that you guys have modified the budget again without consultation from the board?
Treasurer Gafka, can you go through the general fund budget
No, it's
savings?
a question. I'd love to have I think the community
Let's
would like to know.
answer.
Well, let's
let's
go-
answer
let's
Kyle's
Trustee
first.
Hill's
Yeah.
question,
Let's answer
'Cause it's
Kyle's.
a
so that you
discussion,
can
right,
see
Mayor?
the discrepancy is very insignificant.
Well, I think that'll answer much of what you're asking.
Okay. To go through what was discussed on the 4/7, 2026 tentative budget special meeting. Yeah.
Let's wait till this side conversation finishes, but Stephen, can you bring your microphone closer to your?
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. So there was a proposed reduction of Board of Trustees salary by $44,000 to reduce the Board of Trustee expense line item from 2,000 to 0. Potential reduction of the mayor's salary dependent upon the hiring of village administrator. Cut treasury office supplies by.
Hold on a second. The trustee salaries at the request of the trustee, one trustee or two trustee, I don't know how many trustees, is back in, correct?
Correct.
Which trustees requested that?
Franco.
Okay.
And by the way, the mayor's salary's back in too, right? Okay, just want to make sure. We didn't quantify our reductions. We said, hey, if this is what we need to do, this is what we need to do. We didn't qualify it with bringing on another $225,000 salary plus benefit
I was
package.
just trying to clarify that money is back
Treasurer
in the
Gafka,
budget.
Continue.
Treasury office supplies were to be cut by $1,500. The village attorney expenses to be cut by $20,000.
Was that included? Yeah, what I'd like you to do, just for clarification, is to say what the proposed cuts were in the amended discussions that we had and what was not actually implemented in the budget. Please, can you do that? Is it easy to do?
I will speak to what's. Yes, I will do my best.
Okay.
Mayor. So I'll start from the beginning, and I will quantify what is included in this and what is not.
Okay.
And vice versa, because there's items in this
Calculator?
resolution that are not here.
Are you comfortable doing that, or should we go through some other resolutions while you're grinding on that, and then?
Oh, you could do that.
Well, I thought my
if you
understanding
need
was
to.
I was going to speak to what was agreed to and what's included in this and what is not.
If you're ready now, then
Well,
have at
it's-
it.
I didn't
But
think-
if you need a little more time to make sure you have all your facts, then we can do some other
Let's-
resolutions
I
first.
think we can just go through. Let's just go through this. Let's
Okay.
Let's get to the finish line.
Great.
So there was the Board of Trustees salary was to be reduced by $44,000 to 0. That is not included in this resolution tonight. Board of Trustee expense was to be reduced from $2,000. That is not included in the resolution tonight. The mayor's salary was to be reduced contingent upon the hiring of an administrator by $28,000. That is not included in this resolution tonight. Treasury office supplies were to be cut by $1,500. That is not included. Village attorney costs were to be cut by $20,000. That is not included. Labor attorney costs were to be cut by $10,000. That is not included. Ethics attorney costs were to be cut by $5,000. That is not included. Clerk office supplies were to be cut by $1,000. That is not included. Code part-time cut of 25,000, that is in this resolution. Code equipment to be cut by 21,000, that is in this resolution. Code expenses were to be cut by 5,000, that is not in this resolution. Parking credit card fees were to be cut by 50,000, that is in this resolution. Highway full-time salary was to be cut by 80,000, that is in this resolution. Tree work expenses were to be cut by 10,000, that is not in this resolution. Streetlight equipment, specifically for the purchase of new Dickens lights, 16,000 reduction was not included in the resolution. Parks full-time salary increase of 45,309 is in this resolution. Recreation concerts was a reduction of 16,000 to the special meeting. This resolution has it cut by 21,000. Village Center part-time reduction of 25,000 and an increase in the guard of 25,000. Those were both agreed to. That's in this resolution. There was an additional Village Center cut of 9,200 to close the Village Center on Mondays and Tuesdays. That is not in this resolution.
Why not?
9,200.
Monday and Tuesday.
Village Center of equipment of $4,700 to be cut was not included in this resolution. Village Center repairs and maintenance, $25,000 cut was not included in this resolution. Beaches overtime, a cut of $500 is not in this resolution. Building and planning office supplies was to be cut by 2,000. That is not in this resolution. Building and planning software cut of $6,700. That is in this resolution. Community beautification cut of $5,000. That is not in this resolution. New York State retirement cut of 4509 that is in this resolution, but it's much more significant in this resolution. Social Security was to be cut $2,645. That is also in this resolution, but it is significantly higher. And medical benefits were to be cut by $55,500. That is also in this resolution tonight, but it is significantly higher in the resolution. There were also some revenue items that were discussed. At that meeting, miscellaneous revenue was to be increased by $10,000. That is in this resolution. Cell tower rent was to be increased by $8,400. That was in this resolution. Since then, in the resolution tonight that was not discussed at the public meeting at that time, the exact numbers, there's an increase in revenue of $780,000 for parking meter revenue. The village administrator position is being unfunded in the resolution tonight of $150,000. There is a decrease of the recreation full-time salary for the assistant rec manager, $51,426. That is in this resolution, was not discussed at the April 7th meeting. The building department head of $125,000 reduction is in the resolution tonight, but was not discussed at the meeting on April 7th. The building, partial building of a contingency expenses of $94,546, which is an increase of expenses, is in the resolution tonight, but was not discussed at the April 7th meeting. The New York State retirement expenses are going to be reduced by $46,945 as opposed to the $4,500 that were discussed at the April 7th meeting. Social Security expenses will be cut by $27,535 as opposed to the $2,600.45. Medical benefits will be decreased by $125,023 as opposed to the $55,500 that were discussed at the meeting. Overall, if the board will permit me a moment. The total decrease in expenses that are represented in this resolution are $568,000 and $568,219. What we discussed at the April 7th meeting was $405,000. We also have increased revenues, the increase of revenue of the parking meter funds of $780 that offset some of these costs that was also not fully quantified by that April 7th meeting.
Brilliant. Thank you. Great job. We have a motion on the table. Is there further discussion?
Well, I mean, I do think some of these expensive can still be looked at. Like, I know the Dickens lights, weren't we gonna use the metered parking to pay for that? Was that not an option?
It was discussed. I don't believe there was consensus on that, but that is certainly something that can still be looked at, where if we get to adoption and decisions want to be made further before June 1st, there can be something put in place to move to contingency or if that makes sense.
I mean, no. Can it be used? I thought, like, when we discussed those Dickens light at the first special meeting, my takeaway was that we could use metered parking to pay for that.
It was not my recollection that it was firm that we could.
Okay, so can we?
I don't have an answer whether we can use them for Dickens lights. I think I would leave it up to the board.
Like, okay, is there money to do that?
There are parking capital funds that exist. There's $225,000 within this budget. There's an additional allocation of $125,000, but I know that the DPW superintendent is working on a variety of projects to try and utilize that money to pave parking lots and fix certain items. So I don't know how much would be left for that.
Okay.
If we modify this amendment, just to get to the answer, maybe closer to the answer that you're looking for, if we modify this amendment to include the $16,000 allocation from parking meter funds to plan for the destruction of our Dickens lanterns, can we put that in this? I'm fine with that.
We can, yes, it can be amended as long as we have an offset somehow.
Would there be an offset then? Would that be a net zero impact?
It would.
If we could use parking funds for that?
Yeah, net
The
zero
parking
impact.
capital?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To offset this expense?
Mhm.
Yes, it can be
Net zero.
done. Yes, it can be done, yes.
Okay.
Then let's add it.
But we'll need an offset on this line item.
Because it has to net out, right?
To zero,
Yes.
yeah.
So what, I got to do the math. Please allow me a moment to get the numbers. If we're going to reduce
Can we
that.
table this for a moment and go through some of our other
Yes,
agenda
please.
items?
Well,
Okay.
Thank you.
So, I guess then just we can have discussions from the board on some things. The labor attorney, the justification for the cut was that we wouldn't have union negotiations, contract negotiations this next fiscal year, so we didn't need to budget as much. So that
We
hasn't
do have an
changed.
investigation going on, which requires the labor attorney's participation. So I'm a little concerned with eliminating that.
But didn't we discuss that cost would be minimal? Certainly not more than what we were cutting. I mean, there's a
Stephen,
separate
didn't
expense.
we-
There's a
didn't we
separate
cut
expense
overall
for the
On ethics
investigation.
Legal, though?
attorney not having to be at every ethics meeting?
That was the next one I was going to
That-
bring
that
up.
And Stephen, does that mean we have to find, if we remove that expense that we agreed to on the ethics attorney's fees? Is there any complexity related to that in your?
There just has to be an offset on revenue. If you lower expense, there has to be an offset on revenue. So, or an increase in a different expense line.
So then the offset would be
Taxes.
reducing the tax rate, reducing the taxes.
I defer to
Yeah.
the board for that decision.
That is what would be. That would be the case.
Yeah, that would
So
be the
that-
case, so.
So
Microphone.
the thing is that your decrease in revenue line item A1001, property taxes, increase in revenue, I mean, how complicated does this make it, Stephen, for basically money that, I mean, policy that we will implement, but, you know, how complicated does it make this resolution? I mean, we can handle the policy.
Right.
And we're talking about pennies on the tax dollar.
Stephen, Mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
If the board comes to a consensus on just the items themselves,
Mhm.
you could still, and Stephen, certainly correct me if I'm wrong, you could still vote on the tentative budget, and the numbers could be worked up by June 1st. When is it finally due? Is it May 1st?
May 1st.
When it comes to taxes, essentially, this has to be, whatever that line item number is, will be what's inputted, so it needs to be done by May 1st.
May 1st.
May 1st.
So they could agree on the tentative reductions, agree that they're going to be reduced. You don't necessarily need those numbers tonight. You just need to know that you're going to reduce and create an offset.
No, there needs to be a resolution approving it. So there, if it's not done by tonight, there needs to be another meeting to approve it.
Okay.
So are you comfortable agreeing on policy to address these items?
But is the question really, are we going to agree to these cuts and then not cut tax revenue?
Well,
because isn't it just
It's
whatever
pa-
the
it's-
number we agreed on minus that off the tax levy?
Yeah, that's, I think, Stephen, if we can agree right now what those amounts are, we can amend the resolution, and then we can ratify the amended budget. Like, let's not refer to it as the tentative budget, because that budget is versions and versions ago. So, yeah, so.
Tonight? Are you able to do that tonight, Stephen? So at the end of this meeting, we can,
Yeah, as long as I
finalize?
have every single change, yes.
Okay, let's go through them then. So we've got Dickens.
Well, I think we should at least do all of the all of the changes to the amendments to the tentative budget that we agreed on. We should do all the attorney ones.
Okay, so where did we land on Friday with overall attorney fees? That's a total
We didn't
amount,
discuss
right?
it
here.
on Friday. We discussed
No,
it.
it's here.
April
It's in the
8th, I
list. It's
think,
on the list that
or
Stephen
7th.
read out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So Stephen, those attorney fee reductions. Plug them in. Community beautification, we got a grant for that $5,000. So that $5,000 was okay to cut. That was for the pocket park by Baker's Alley that DPW and Christine, we got a grant from PSEG. So that should be a net negative, except for your paperwork. Tree work snuck back in there. What was that?
If I may explain,
Mhm.
the Budget and Finance Committee was concerned about the expense reductions throughout the budget, that there was not going to be a contingency built up. Trustee Ugrinsky took some of those recommendations to, as I understand it, to the trustees to come to an idea for a budget that would increase taxes at about 203. So
We need to plan for what
That's-
what we can't predict. And that's what the contingency's for.
The
And right
concern was
now-
that the total cuts.
Right.
If
I
the
hear,
co-
I hear you.
So.
I hear you. Policy-wise, we can tighten our belts. In our process, we can tighten our belts. We need the contingency, additional, what cuts weren't made is plugged into a contingency that allows us to have, it's not even $100,000. So, but it's a start. You have to start somewhere. It's not millions, right? But it's a start. Is that reserve-ish?
The contingency is built, the municipality is allowed to create a contingency specifically that only the board can authorize the spending of that money on whatever the board decides it should be spent on. It can only be used by resolution and cannot be touched by myself as the treasurer or any department head. So what I would ask the board is, with all of these other deductions that we cut, do you want to reduce property taxes with it, or would you like to push those expenses into the contingency to keep what was discussed at the open, the 203 increase, but to build a potential buffer for something that like what occurred for January and February with the snowstorm? I would pose that question as the treasurer to the board.
I'll answer that from my perspective. I agree with Trustee Hill's concerns about how allocations are made, and I think we can manage that within this proposed budget and policy-wise, spending-wise. And we can be very careful about that. But with respect to what the treasurer has done and the work that went into this from the Budget and Finance Committee and the recommendations, I tend to agree with the way that this resolution reads.
Well, I hope you agree that it's a resolution on your agenda, but I mean, I think that is the right question. Do we want to push all this into the contingency fund, or do we want to send it back to taxpayers? The problem is now it's 8 o'clock at night on the day before our homework is due, and I think we're making what is a large philosophical decision, but monetarily we're talking about dollars back to the taxpayers. So I think we kind of need to hear from all the trustees at this point. The other point that we had not talked about was the $25,000 for the village center repairs. The reason we cut that $25,000 because nobody could say what the repairs were and what the plan was to do it. So just throwing $25,000 back into that bucket doesn't make any sense. I'd rather keep it back down to 75 or and send that $25,000 back to the taxpayer, because that's about at least $10 more, because it's roughly $2,800 to $2,800 in lower in tax revenue means $1 less in taxes. Sorry, can you just, if you're gonna talk in the back, it's very distracting when we're trying to have conversations. So there's plenty of space throughout Village Hall if you want to have conversations, and I know folks in the audience get distracted as well. I would rather cut the Village Center back down to 75 and put that other 25 in the contingency fund, or send that back to the taxpayers, because we still don't have the maintenance plan.
So, Stephen, if everything that we're talking about that would go into the contingency plan, what would the impact be on the 203.37 or whatever the amount was?
With everything, if all of these additional items
Like
that were
90,000 something?
that's at 94,000, it would increase that line item. It would reduce these. It'd be everything else would be the same.
Okay, and how much less would the average resident pay against, like, what is the average resident paying on this budget? 203.37?
Yes.
Okay. And what would eliminating that $90-something thousand contingency get us in terms of how much less would a resident pay? I know that one. I know it takes a while to figure out. So, but
That
Ballpark.
wasn't what I was proposing, though.
You were proposing reducing it, no?
No.
You,
I was
were you
proposing
proposing
adding to it.
Adding to?
Yeah, I said, so one of the cuts that got restored was $25,000 for Village Center repairs and maintenance. We made that cut because there was no plan for the maintenance.
So
and
the
since
maintenance
there was no plan, we were like, okay, well, let's.
We did get recommendations from the Village Center management, and the roof is leaking, the HVAC system needs repairs, and the geothermal unit keeps crapping out. So this is where contingency comes into play specifically, but also let's prepare and budget for what we know is going to happen in the Village Center. That it requires investment to keep it up. There's no question about that. It's not, and 25,000, where are we right now in the current fiscal with the Village Center repairs? Did we blow that budget?
I don't have the exact number, but last I checked, we were at 70,000.
70?
70.
So it
But
costs
it
money
was-
for that building to be maintained.
I know, but isn't the current budget for it 100?
No.
The current is 75?
The current, in the tentative, it was 100. The current in this fiscal year is 75.
And we spent just at 70, you said.
We're at 70. I can look up the exact number where we're at.
Can you look
So
up
we're
exactly
continuing
what
the
we
existing
repaired?
maintenance.
As we discussed at the previous meeting, what's involved in this line item, it's the maintenance of the elevators, it's all of the trash that is created, it's the plumbing issues, it's for the cleaning of the Village Center, it's for the alarm, it's for the fire, to have the fire alarms inspected.
Window repairs.
Those any potential plumbing issues or minor repairs come out of that line, but that has been averaging around 75,000 for the last 2 years. So that is the baseline for that budget, without actually doing any type of repairs.
So, but is there a plan for the major repairs then?
I can speak that I received a quote that was well over $150,000 to replace geothermal units. Obviously that can't all be done. There was multiple quotes to do the rugs in the second floor and first floor that was going to cost upwards of $30,000 between the two. I think just the second floor was $14,000 itself. There were additional quotes that she's looking to get for the Village Center wall, some of the doors that need some work, windows that need to be cleaned, the roof that needs to be plugged because there are some leaks, etc. I will say that if the board is more comfortable to have that money in a contingency account rather than have it in an expense line item, that is certainly something that can be doable, and then it would only be spent by board resolution.
It doesn't reduce
It would be a net zero effect
on
to move it to a different expense line or move it to contingency.
As a follow-up to that, if it's left at the Village Center and not used as we approach the end of the fiscal year, do you have the ability to then move it to contingency
Yes, or it could be allocated to a reserve account.
to reduce 2028?
Potentially, yes.
So what do you think?
It doesn't reduce taxes. If that's the goal, you're not reducing taxes. For that.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Line up for that one line item. I mean, as we discussed, the Dickens lanterns, the attorney's fees, and then what was the other point? There's another item you spoke about. Oh, also the
Beautification.
beautification. Also, closing of the Village Center at 5 o'clock on Mondays and Tuesdays.
Does that impact programming?
Does not.
Does not.
Great. Okay.
The bathrooms would still be accessible. Code would close the bathrooms at the, because you can still access
Would
them
there
from
be
the
any
outside
staff
from the
in
back.
there?
I'm sorry?
If the bathrooms are still accessible inside the village center?
They would be locked on the inside of the building, but they're unlocked on the outside of the building.
I see. Okay.
So if there's an event going on a Monday or Tuesday, the bathrooms would still be available
Accessible.
for people, yeah.
That particular number was 9,200.
So I think that should be included along with the other items and offset by reducing the taxes.
I agree with that, Bob.
As far as the 25 for the repairs, I think it's 6 and 1/2 dozen the other. We're not really affecting the taxes. We're putting it into a contingency that we can, as Stephen said, we could take out, but the taxes would remain the same. It wouldn't affect the taxes.
What does that look like, Stephen? Do you need time to work that up?
I need to get the line items squared away, but yes, I can work it up within the next 10 minutes.
You do that in your office or here? Wanna
Preferab-
print out a new resolution for us?
Preferably in my office.
Okay.
Just to be clear,
Is that it?
I want to make sure that I have everything.
Yeah.
The Dickens, reduce Dickens from 16,000 as what was agreed on 4-7 to reduce taxes. Reduce attorney by 20,000 to reduce taxes. Labor attorney, 10,000 reduction to reduce taxes. 5,000 each for the ethics attorney and community beautification to reduce taxes. 9,200 to close the village center to reduce taxes. The 25,000 village center maintenance moved to contingency. Am I correct in that understanding?
What's the labor
Sounds-
attorney budgeted? I'm sorry.
Was at 40, this would bring it to 30.
Okay. Sound good?
That sounds good to me.
Yes.
By me.
Okay, I'll be.
Thank
Give me
you,
a few
Stephen.
minutes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're tabling this for the moment, Sylvia, correct? Do we need a motion to table that? No.
No.
He'll be back and
It's not a table.
we're just gonna hold on it. Okay,
It's a
let's move
pause.
on.
Okay.
We'll circle back.
We have, in that case, resolution number 2, 42926, resolution approving a parking pass for employees of commercial business establishments within the village of Port Jefferson at a cost of $125 per season per parking pass, with implementation details to follow. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second?
Is it me? Second
Yes.
for discussion. I've lost my second page, so. We'll
Do you have
find it
Stephen's
eventually.
agenda there, Sylvia? Maybe.
It'll pop up eventually. Oh,
Yeah.
here. Oh, no.
Yes, it's you.
He
Hill.
did. He said
I second it.
All right, any discussion?
So is this going to be a sticker or a license plate reader?
It's a permit, it's an, what do you call it? Virtual permit. And it's not a hang tag, it's a permit that they're purchasing. And it will come up on the reader because it can be canceled or re-upped anytime. Like if somebody stops, if this, finish your question and,
So I just am a little bit concerned with the possibility. Well, there's a few concerns. One, it's possible to abuse it because if, Joe, 19-year-old, works at the pizza place and Joe, 19-year-old's mom and dad want to go get dinner that night, well, I'm just going to take Joe's car because we can park for free. And there's really no way to know if Joe's at work or if his parents took it. Two, one of the ideas of metered parking was to keep the parking spaces moving. And one of the issues were have experienced is people will park on Main Street where it's free, like right outside their store, even though those spots are supposed to be for like quick, easy access. But now, if someone's going to do a full shift, they're just going to stay at the most convenient spot they have, because they've already paid for all the parking that they're going to pay for. So the incentive to park further goes away, to the free or side streets goes away. And I'm sure not everyone loves when people park in the side streets. My house is one of those. I actually love when people are parking in the side streets because it means the village is nice and full. But I just am a little concerned that we need more, almost like an economic analysis of how it's going to work and like what's the drop, like how would it impact revenue? I don't know if that was part of the calculus that we're getting in the budget that we're trying to figure out too. And do we know how many hours roughly people who work downtown work a week?
And before we push this forward, I mean, we have to have the data to make an educated decision here. I mean, the mayor at our last board meeting stated there were about 300 employees in the community. So, let's just say, for argument's sake, every one of them purchases a pass. That's $37,000, $500 approximately to the village. But that's eating up parking spots for residents, for people that come in this community. And as Kyle said, they're going to be there for the whole shift. So how does that affect the parking meter revenue that should be coming in? I don't think there's going to be, it's going to really, I think, impede, because it's about, if you're saying we have about 600 and something parking spots, if 200 of them are occupied by employees of the village and with people with these parking passes, it's significantly going to affect the revenue coming in. So without all of that additional data, we can't make a decision like this tonight.
Does it make sense to, since the amended budget is not dependent on this particular item, and we could approve it at a future time, does it make sense to table it for now?
Yeah, definitely. Let's get the information.
So,
Is that a motion?
Motion to table?
Well,
Second.
I'd like to
Second.
continue discussion
Okay.
first. So we've already gotten 2 letters. People saw this agenda. We've already gotten 2 letters from people who work in the village. And they're imploring that we sell parking passes. Because $3 an hour for an employee means if they work an 8-hour shift, that is it's $24 to start into your tips already. This was sort of an effort to appease and work collaboratively with the business community in, removing the $1 parking fee and increasing it to $2 on weekdays and $3 on weekends, which is obviously a proposal that we were all in favor of. But in talking to the people in the district, which I'm not sure if anybody has spoken with any of the business owners in the district about this proposal, which I think we proposed this a couple of weeks ago at one of our work sessions on the budget. There's plenty of time to do research on that and try and cull data together. You want the data? Go get the data. It's at your fingertips as well. So I'm fully in support. I don't need to wait. I don't need to. I've thought this through. I think the business owners in our community feel like they're triple taxed on the commercial tax, the bid tax, and also the tax on parking, because $3 an hour is impacting their business as well as their employees' pocketbooks and their ability to make money. So, and one of the comments we got, I don't know if you want to read those 2 letters that we got from the people, and we just got them today, so we didn't have time to plug them into the packet. But I'm fine voting on this today. If this vote passes, great. If it doesn't pass, then we'll deal with it again. But I would like to keep this and not table it. I'd like to keep this on the agenda.
May I?
Mhm.
I just want the board to understand that by the time we meet again at a voting meeting, it's post-Memorial Day and the season has started. I also want to advise the board that as the person who reviews the parking ticket disputes, a bulk of them are village commercial district employees pleading for a reduction because their shift ran late. They didn't get time to run out and feed the meter. They're parking here anyway, regardless of whether they're getting tickets or not. And then the last thing I would like to say is, because it seems to be a reoccurring theme at these meetings, that it's to be data-driven, but there has to be a realistic expectation of who's getting that data and what that data is going to be. In hearing Trustee Hill's comments, although very valid, who is going to find out how many village employees, what their shifts are, when they work, how many work a day?
The village administrator.
But that,
So again,
I'm not
Attorney
trying
Moran,
to go
we're
there.
making a vote without.
Trustee, may I finish my comment, please?
But no, I want to answer what you said. We're making a vote without all the information you just said.
But-
And
but
I
I-
spoke to the treasurer early today, before we had this meeting get started, and I said, can you put this together so we can have make an informed decision? So that's
Trustee,
what
I
we
don't
have-
disagree with you, but
Okay.
is it the village treasurer's job to find out how many employees and when they work 40-hour shifts? Because that's what Trustee Hill was asking. Who's parking when and where and for what 40 hours? And I just don't want to be here now post-Memorial Day and still not have that information. So whatever, we should hone down on what exact information is accessible from village staff and employees, so we're just not here in a month from now asking for the same thing because it's impossible for the
I would
treasurer to
assu-
go get.
I would assume that we would present the data that we would like collected to make to make an informed decision. But to make a decision.
But what is
with
that data is my question, so you're
Well,
not, you don't have a realistic
So
expectation.
we already know that there's potentially 300 employees in the village that could potentially take up 300 parking slots. It's not realistic that they're going to all be there at the same time, taking up these spots, but those are spots that are not going to be used for meters. Now, again, there are options to the employees here. We have the Brookhaven lot. We have the CVS lot. It's $32 for the season pass to park in Brookhaven. You know, and then the mayor, brought up astutely that they're afraid to walk at 2 o'clock in the morning to the Brookhaven lot, which has a security guard in it. Right? And again, I have a friend whose son is 12 years old. He takes a bus and a subway to go to school in Manhattan. You know what? I think we could walk in pretty secure confidence that you could walk to the Brookhaven lot pretty safely after your shift to go get your car. But to have them eat up parking spots, I was at, I think it's Nantucket's.
I agree with you.
And so again, we're not making a decision with information, we're making just a rash decision. And we know how that works. This board has done that before. So let's not continue the same pattern. Trustee Ugrinsky is right, we should table this decision, get together at our next work session, come together with the questions and the information we need to make a coherent decision, and then go forward.
I don't disagree with you, Trustee Franco.
Oh,
I just
okay.
want there to be a realistic expectation of what that information you need is and who's going to get it. Because again, the season starts now. Basically, it's the season starting. And I agree with you, but from a village perspective, who's polling the business community to get that info? So I just don't want to be stuck in this same spot in a month.
For some reason, I have a
So
feeling that.
I guess here's what I would say. One, we're not amending the parking rates until June 1st. So we have a little bit, and if we weren't amending the parking rates, we wouldn't be talking about the parking pass. So we have a few weeks to figure it out. I think a Google survey, I'm happy to draft it. Google survey, send it out to the chamber, to the bid. All the businesses that want to participate, we can get that data. It's due by the next work session because we got to make a decision. Does that work for the group?
Sounds good.
Kind of what I was aiming, let's get it.
And I agree with you. I'm not saying this is an easy answer. I literally was saying to Franco today, I was like, I don't think Stephen can answer this. We need an economist to figure out like the cost decision tree, because now we might have people that have been going to the free lots being like, all right, I'll just pay.
There's a
for
bid
the-"
meeting
Yeah.
on Tuesday night.
Okay.
If you want to, it's good to have the Google survey, but if you want to go in there and get real-time reactions too, that would be a good place to do it. It's at the Village Center at 6 o'clock.
So motion to table?
Motion to table?
Okay. Motion to table?
By Trustee
Yes.
Franco.
Motion to table?
There's no second yet.
No, waiting for a second.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Franco?
Yes.
Trustee Ugrinsky?
I don't find it unreasonable, so,
Is that a yes?
yes.
Thank you. Trustee Giuliano?
Yes.
Trustee Hill?
Yes.
That means I don't get to vote, right?
Can.
You can.
Motion carries. is what you
Motion
said.
carries.
Okay, resolution number 3, 42926, resolution approving the attachment to the March 25th, 2026 agenda meeting, the April 8th, 2026 work session meeting, and the special meetings held on April 7th, 2026, and April 24th, 2026, of which there were 2, of the Village of Port Jefferson Board of Trustees. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 4, 42926, resolution scheduling a public hearing for 6 o'clock p.m. on May 27th, 2026 at Village Hall, 121 West Broadway, Port Jefferson, New York, 11777, regarding a proposed local law amending Chapter 205, rental property, Section 3, definition and word usage, and Chapter 205, rental property, Section 4, rental occupancy permit required application of the Code of the Village of Port Jefferson to add the definition of immediate family and to add a functional family equivalent. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 5, 42926, resolution scheduling a public hearing for 6 o'clock p.m. on May 27th, 2026 at Village Hall, 121 West Broadway, Port Jefferson, New York, 11777, regarding a proposed local law amending Chapter 241, trees, grading, and land clearing, Section 9, enforcement of the Code of the Village of Port Jefferson to authorize the code enforcement supervisor or their designee to enforce this chapter of the code in addition to the building inspector. May I have a motion?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Resolution number 6, 42926, resolution scheduling a public hearing for 6 o'clock p.m. on May 27th, 2026 at Village Hall, 121 West Broadway, Port Jefferson, New York, 11777, regarding a proposed local law amending Chapter 250, zoning, Article 12, Planning Board, Section 51A, establishment of the Code of the Village of Port Jefferson to expand the number of planning board members from 5 to 7. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Discussion. I'm going to be voting no on this. The planning board meets once a month. The meetings are booked out 12 months in advance. The planning board is arguably even more influential than the Board of Trustees. And my understanding is that the reason for adding 2 more slots to it is because the planning board has had difficulty reaching a quorum. I think it's a volunteer job, and I appreciate that, but with a job that is, so influential and does have a certain level of prestige to it, I just think this is not, the solution is to prioritize the meeting, not add 2 slots to the board. So I will be voting against even the public hearing on this one.
Just to clarify, they conduct more than 1 meeting a month. Typically, they're running 2 meetings a month.
But, okay,
And
I
then they
appreciate the
have
correction.
they have intermediary meetings that get called for special concerns, and work sessions and things like that. They're pretty busy, and the issue is that sometimes people go away and they don't have a quorum, and if there are 7 people attending these meetings, right now there's an alternate, and the issue, which I completely agree with, the request of, this is a planning board request to do this. It didn't come from the Board of Trustees. It's a request of the chairman of the planning board, and I think there's a consensus among the planning board that this happen, is to make sure that there is a full understanding and a quorum of at least 5 people. The people on the planning board, and you know who they are, but just for the public edification, there are 3 engineers on that board. There is a developer with a great deal of construction experience, and there is also a long-time resident. We all know Barbara Sabatino. She's here at our meetings all the time. So there are just times when they can't all be there. And I haven't experienced in my time as liaison to the planning board an inability to reach a three-person quorum. But I think the goal here is to have more than 3 people at a voting meeting. And if there are 7 people on the planning board, then you always have at least 5 people, and those 7 opinions, and it's in code, it's in law that you can have up to 7 people on your planning board. So this is how it was presented to me in the letter. I don't know if all that came through, but I will be voting yes for the actual hearing itself, but maybe a conversation with the planning board would be helpful, and at the public hearing, they can convey their interests and their perspective on this. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries.
Resolution number 7, 42926, resolution ratifying the approval of the attached Port Jefferson 250 short form logo license agreement for limited, non-exclusive, non-transferable use of the Port Jefferson 250 commemorative logo for use on merchandise and promotional materials. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 8, 42926, resolution approving the attached contract for services submitted by Grants Administrator Lisa Motto for a 1-year term beginning on May 30th, 2026 and ending on May 30th, 2027, and authorizing Mayor Shepard to sign the contract on behalf of the Village of Port Jefferson. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Can we get her under contract for longer?
Yeah, really. How much money has she brought in?
Millions.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Resolution number 9, 42926, resolution approving the attached First Amendment to License Agreement between the Village of Port Jefferson and Verizon Wireless, and authorizing Mayor Shepard to sign the agreement on behalf of the Village of Port Jefferson. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Resolution number 10, 42926, resolution approving the attached retainer agreement submitted by Adam Fusco on behalf of Fusco Law Office for the provision of election-related legal services for the June 16th, 2026 Village General Election, and authorizing Mayor Shepard to sign the agreement on behalf of the Village of Port Jefferson. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Resolution number 11, 42926, resolution approving the attached event application submitted by Cynthia Court on behalf of Mather Hospital for the use of specified village streets and village code enforcement as traffic control personnel from 8:30 a.m. through 1:30 p.m. on May 17th, 2026 for the annual Northwell Walk to Raise Health. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Resolution number 12, 42926 is a resolution tabling the approval of the attached event application submitted by Barbara Ransom on behalf of the Greater Port Jefferson Chamber of Commerce for the use of specified village streets and village code enforcement as traffic control personnel from noon through 8 p.m. on July 5th, 2026 for a Port Jefferson Village Day block party, and authorizing the waiving of the requisite $50 application fee. May I have a motion on the tabling, please?
Motion.
And a second?
Do we have a second? Then we
I'll
can
second.
discuss it. The issue is we received this application prior to the event planning team meeting with the chamber and with the 250th committee. We just wanted to get more detail on the permit, and it's not a rush to get this permit approved. So we wanted to table it for the next meeting or the work session. Thank you. Any questions on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Steve.
Resolution number 13, 42926, resolution approving the attached event application submitted by village historian Mark Sternberg on behalf of the Village of Port Jefferson for the use of a portion of Harborfront Park from noon through 5 p.m. on May 2nd, 2026 for the Caleb Brewster Armed Whaleboat event, and authorizing the waiving of the requisite $50 application fee. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Resolution number 14, 42926, resolution approving the attached proposal submitted by Fireworks by Grucci, Inc. for the provision of fireworks performances in 2026, 2027, and 2028. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number,
Jump back, sorry. We can jump back to the budget now, right?
we can, or we can, up to the board, or we can complete these and then end with the budget.
I just think for folks in the room and folks watching at home, they are most likely here for the budget discussions. So maybe we jump back to that.
So do we have to amend? We don't have to amend that. Okay, so we're
Okay.
back to resolution number 42926, which is a resolution amending the fiscal year 2026-2027 tentative annual budget dated March 19th, 2026, as follows. Decrease revenue line item A, 1001, real property taxes by $1,415,819. Increase revenue line item A, 1740, metered parking by $780,000. Increase revenue line item A, 2410.003, cell tower rent by $8,400. Increase revenue line item A277, miscellaneous revenue by $15,000. Decrease expense line item A, 1230.1, village administrator salary by $150,000. Decrease expense line item A, 1420.4, village attorney expenses by $20,000. Decrease line item A, 1420.400.1, labor attorney expenses by $10,000. Decrease expense line item A, 1420.400.4, ethics attorney expenses by $5,000. Increase expense line item A, 1990.4, contingency expenses by $119,546. Decrease expense line item A, 3120.12, code part-time by $25,000. Decrease expense line item A, 3120.2, code equipment by $21,000. Decrease expense line item A, 3320.402, parking credit card fees by $50,000. Decrease expense line item A, 5110.1, highway full-time salary by $80,000. Increase expense line item A, 7110.1, parks full-time salary by $45,309. Decrease expense line item A, 7140.1, recreation full-time salary by $51,426. Decrease expense line item A, 7140.43, recreation concerts by $21,000. Decrease expense line item A, 7145.12, village center part-time by $34,200. Increase expense line item A, 7145.121, village center part-time guard by $25,000. Decrease expense line item A, 7145.465, village center repair and maintenance by $25,000. Decrease expense line item A, 8020.1, building planning full-time by $125,000. Decrease expense line item A, 8020.445, building planning software by $6,700. Decrease expense line item A, 9010.8, New York State retirement by $46,945. Decrease expense line item A, 9030.8, social security expenses by $27,535. Decrease expense line item A, 9060.8, medical benefit by $125,023. And finally, increase expense line item A, 9089.8, accrued benefit leave by $21,555. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Mayor, at this time, I would like to offer a roll call vote. Trustee Franco.
Before you do the roll call.
Discussion?
I'm sorry.
Discussion.
Apologies.
Not my discussion.
Oh,
I just-
Stephen, how did that change the tax levy?
The tax levy would go to $7,585,477 for a total increase of $477,732. The percent increase on that is 6.72. The tax rate would go to 45.283. And the average residential increase, it decreased that by $16 to $187.38. And the average commercial increase went down to $356.46.
And Stephen, the tax rate?
The tax rate is the increase, the percent,
Yeah.
11.9.
Can we start the roll call vote, please?
Trustee Franco?
No.
Trustee Ugrinsky?
Aye.
Trustee Giuliano?
Aye.
Trustee Hill?
No.
Mayor, how do you vote?
We can actually go back to the tentative budget.
If you vote no.
Obviously, yay. Oh my God. Unreal. Okay, back to the agenda, please.
That
Yeah.
motion passes, I know, 3-2.
And we have a budget.
In a moment, Trustee Ugrinsky, we will have a budget. We don't have a budget yet. We have what follows.
Can we conduct business in public, please? What's next?
What's next is Mayor Resolution Number 1A, 42926, which is a resolution adopting the fiscal year 2026-2027 tentative annual budget dated March 19th, 2026, as modified per Resolution Number 1, 42926, as the adopted annual budget for the Village of Port Jefferson for fiscal year 2026-2027. May I have that motion? And a second?
Second. Discussion? I'm a little confused. What is this second motion doing?
Adopting the budget, you had to.
Oh, okay, the
Pursu-
first one
pursuant
amends
to
it.
law,
Got it.
you have to accept the amendments to the tentative by resolution, and then ultimately adopt the budget.
Got it.
But,
Okay.
but A isn't in here?
A is not in there. A is, I only have A. Only I have A, Mayor.
All in favor? Or should we do roll
It's
call?
a roll call vote,
All right,
Mayor.
let's go back to roll call.
Thank you. Trustee Franco?
No.
Trustee Ugrinsky?
Aye.
Trustee Giuliano?
Aye.
Trustee Hill?
No.
And Mayor?
Aye.
Thank you. That passes 3-2.
So
With
what
that-
happens if that wasn't approved?
The tentative budget would become the budget.
Or we would have
Even
continued
if, even
amending
with,
it.
even with the amendments that were approved? The ten,
We went back to the tentative budget. No. No, the amendments approved?
The amendments were approved, so the tentative was already modified, so if it failed, the amendments still would have applied.
okay.
Or, as Trustee Hill pointed out, you still have a few more days to do something, but would require another meeting.
Right.
Or hours tonight.
Please
Resolution-
continue.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution number 15.
Can we
for-
actually skip to resolution 20, I think it is, or, sorry, 27? Because that is also related to the budget, and I would encourage people to stay for that. Because I would encourage people to stay for this next resolution because it's related to the budget that we live in right now. And we're moving $419,000 in already budgeted money, and I think that is a discussion worth having.
But you know it's affected by, can we just follow the agenda, please? It'll all be revealed. I mean.
We'll get there.
let's
Yeah,
just-
but it's
we'll
going to
get
be
there.
in hour, like, 5 or 6 of this meeting.
No, we're gonna run right through these next resolutions.
So with that, we have resolution number 15, 42926, resolution authorizing Mayor Shepro to execute on behalf of the Village of Port Jefferson the DASNY Grant Disbursement Agreement for grant files 25752 NYEDP and 25668 SAM, associated with the purchase and restoration of the Tooker House. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution.
Opposed?
Excuse me. Resolution number 16, 42926, resolution approving a refund of golf membership dues in the amount of $3,498.90 for Stan Laux, as recommended by the Country Club Management Advisory Council. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second, discussion. Is this a new policy that we are implementing? Because when I had my knee replacement surgery, I was never offered the option to get my money back. And I agree with, Stan should get his money back. I'm going to vote yes on that. But did we change the policy? Because my money was told that it was going to be rolled over for me to use next year. It was not returned. So can someone, Zena, maybe you can explain what the difference is?
He's not going to be able to play next year. Like, there is no
He paid for his
applying-
2026, 27 member, he paid for his membership for this season.
But he hasn't played.
His full membership. He had rollover too, just like you did. He got a, what do you call it? He got a credit.
medical exemption.
A credit, because you put your exemption, you requested your exemption in
Correct.
September.
Yes.
As did he. So you both got deferred. If you wanted to join this year, you would have a deferred amount of money to pay, which is what this amount is. And he paid for his membership.
So if I
for this
didn't
year.
want to join this year, I would then get my money returned?
I don't know. You would have to request.
Okay.
It
I
went
can't
through
answer that
the
question
Board
for
of
you right now.
Governors
If
and the
because
CC
just
Mac.
wanted to know
So,
what the policy was on this.
yeah.
Okay.
And the
All-
new
all-
golf manual has been published, so.
All in favor?
And
Aye.
it contains the
Yep.
policy.
No side conversations.
Aye.
Remember what the mayor said before. Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Resolution number 17, 42926, resolution approving the attached TechWorks Consulting, Inc. proposal in the amount of $654 for the provision of network equipment to restore connectivity in the Salt Meadow parking lot, and authorizing Mayor Shepro to sign the proposal on behalf of the Village of Port Jefferson. May I have the motion?
Motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution number 18, 42926, resolution approving the attached new subscription quotation submitted by Martine Sutera on behalf of Nearmap in the amount of $8,300 for the implementation and integration of the Nearmap Vertical for Government program. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 19, 42926, resolution appointing Arnold Lustig and Nancy Lustig as alternate election inspectors for the June 16, 2026 Village General Election at an hourly pay rate of $19 per hour. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 20, 42926, resolution ratifying the appointment of Daniel Gross as the floodplain administrator for the Village of Port Jefferson. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Resolution number 21, 42926, resolution ratifying the rehiring of Rich Mercurio and Craig Perino as part-time seasonal flag football coaches effective April 1st, 2026 through December 1st, 2026, at an hourly wage rate of $45 per hour. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 22, 42926, resolution ratifying the rehiring of Flavio Alvarez as a tennis coach for Recreation Department tennis and pickleball programs effective April 12th, 2026 through December 1st, 2026, at an hourly wage rate of $17 per hour. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 23, 42926, resolution ratifying the hiring of Jose Diaz Jr. as a seasonal laborer at the Port Jefferson Country Club effective April 20th, 2026, at an hourly wage rate of $23 per hour. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 24, 42926, resolution hiring Danielle Zarnecki, Ilya Kasperwich, Robert Reeve, David Farrell, Nicole Mogrovejo, and Walter Adan as code enforcement officers at an hourly wage rate of $19.31 per hour effective May 4th, 2026. May I have a motion?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 25, 42926, resolution accepting the resignation of Arlene Ayala as a part-time justice court clerk effective May 4th, 2026. May I have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 26, 42926, resolution authorizing the solicitation of a request for proposals related to a temporary license agreement for the use of an enclosed portion of the Traders Cove parking lot for the purposes of storing and maintaining waste removal equipment and for the maintenance of the fence, concrete pad, equipment, and property area surrounding the equipment. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Resolution number 27, 14926, resolution authorizing a general fund budget transfer to reallocate $419,390 available through expense reductions to correct over-budget general fund line items by authorizing Treasurer Gafka to perform attached budget transfer number 52. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Discussion. So the cuts that are in here, because so this is for folks at home and in the room, this is a near $500,000 budget transfer from a whole plethora of accounts to a whole other different plethora of accounts. Were the department heads notified of the cuts to their budgets?
I did notify the department heads that I was going to be moving a significant amount of money around to cover their over budget lines in all of their individual departments. And, you know, I can say they weren't thrilled with it, but we have to cover over budget lines, so.
I understand that, but did the department heads contribute on which ones should be cut?
No.
Okay, because my concern in one of these is the sidewalk repairs and maintenance is being cut by $20,000, and that would leave how much left in it? The answer is $10,000. And I was talking with DPW Superintendent Greg Munson a few weeks back. There's a particular part on High Street, not in front of my house, I will add, but down the block that is crumbling, and there's caution tape and the wooden horses blocking it so that pedestrians cannot use it, so this way they don't trip, fall, and sue the village. He told me that repair alone would cost $30,000, which would be all of the maintenance repair, which I'm fine using for that, and I'm sure there are other spots that are also in need of it. But if we cut that line, that means that repair doesn't get to happen. Other things in here, we're plussing up Village Hall building expenses. What does that go to?
We had part of the Village Hall building expenses. We just had a $5,000 repair that was made to the HVAC unit. So that's to cover that cost, and it's already over budget for various repairs. We had the RPZ valve that failed outside of Village Hall that froze the pipes. We had some plumbing issues. We've had the boiler went out, had to be repaired. So
none of that's going to paint and carpeting?
Not as part of this, no.
Okay. Is there anything in this budget transfer that's going to paint and carpeting?
No. And I will add that when I created this budget transfer specifically with DPW, I did discuss the cuts to sidewalks at that time.
Smooth as silk.
I did discuss this cut with him at that time, that I would need to cover some of his over budget line items due to various equipment failures and repairs to a lot of his vehicles. So if there was new information of a planned project for $30,000, I was unaware.
Okay. And then the village attorney expenses, we're transferring another $42,000 to that. Didn't we do one of these not too long ago?
We did, and we continue to have, I guess, occasions that we need the village attorney to cover off these expenses. So we've averaged $150,000 in the last 2 years, and it looks like we're going to hit that again for this year.
I think actually we're going to be even well beyond that, because in the tentative budget, you can see for 2026 we budgeted $105,000. The actual was $158,000, and we already transferred $13,000, it looks like. So that would mean we're going to be more than double the village attorney expenses.
That's a great question, Trustee Hill. When we built the tentative budget, the idea was with the village attorney expenses is that we were going to have there were less items that we were going to need the attorney for, and that just did not happen.
Got it. But shouldn't there be some effort to stay within the budget lines that we determine as a board? Because we really hemmed and hawed on what's going to be the next fiscal year budget, only to move around a significant portion of it at the very end, which I understand has to be done, but on some of these lines, it just doesn't seem like there's any effort to stay within what the board set.
So that's why this resolution is being presented also. But there are things that happen. There is two different philosophies for accounting. You could just pay expenses out of whatever lines have the money in them, which creates an issue where you have no idea what you're budgeting for in the future, because you can just fund it with all of the available expenses and you never do a budget transfer, and then you don't really know what you have with your budget. By allowing these particular lines to go over budget, especially for things like repairs and maintenance with DPW, what you do is you get a more accurate representation of what happened, and a lot of the times these repairs happen in the moment that they're happening without the ability to consult the board on, can we fix the plows? Can we get the dump truck bed fixed because it's rusting out? You know, those types of issues. So I understand the concern. This is something that I have offered. I typically do in May, that I do every year, where I try and move a variety of whatever there's expenses left over to move to cover over budget expenses. I did this earlier this year because of the pressures for next year, so that if there were expenses that need to get covered off for May, that they don't fall into next year's budget and can be encumbered in May.
Okay, so I hear you on all of that, but I still think I think now that we're understanding the budget situation that we're all in, trustees should be notified every time an account line goes over budget, along with a plan to make sure for the department heads to do the best that they can. Obviously, if a pipe bursts, that's not within the control of anyone here. But there are certain ways we, budget hours for consultants that I think we can be much more judicious on. And that includes more than double the attorney fee. And even if it wasn't double the attorney budget, it's still $50,000 over what the historic spend has been. So I just think these numbers are not okay. And, this is a reduction in service, is this budget transfer of cutting 2/3 of the sidewalk maintenance budget when there's crumbling sidewalk in our neighborhoods.
What I can assure you, Trustee Hill, is that immediately following this meeting tomorrow, I will meet with DPW to see if that project needs to happen and these funds can be restored for whatever project needs to happen. As I've explained to every department head, I will work with them to make sure that if they need something needs to be done, it will get done.
I just have one statement. I received earlier today from Trustee Ugrinsky and the Budget Committee a statement, basically an affidavit of what they wanted to do with the budget. And the reason I voted no on this budget, and I'll make this available, is the tax rate increase that I received was supposed to be 7.41%, not 11%, like was voted on today. So, and they were kind enough to say Matt's stated threshold, that I would not exceed 8% on an increase at the tax rate. And then they, again, write, within Matt's threshold. So I understand the budget passed, but this is what I mean by misinformation given to me 4 hours before the vote, that the tax rate was going to be 7.41%, not, Stephen, what was the number that we went, it was 11?
The 7.41 was the total levy increase.
That's correct.
And what was landed on was 11.9.
But the information sent to me was that's the tax rate, that was what residents were going to pay. They didn't send a tax rate that said 11+%. And this is what I mean by process matters here, and misinformation. As hard as everyone works, that's a huge mistake to present to me 4 hours before we're going to vote.
I think we should make that public, that PDF.
I agree.
Yeah.
I love it.
Let's do it.
I think it's fantastic. You know what? Thank you, Zena. That's
Yeah,
a good idea.
sure.
I'll let everybody see it. And that's why there needs to be some changes in the process here.
You know, you were actually at one of our meetings. Why didn't you come back to our meetings for the Budget and Finance Committee? You came to the first one after you first got elected.
That is correct. Well, come to the microphone if you'd like to talk. That's fine. Tell people who you are. Step up.
We can hear him.
We can't hear at home.
You want to turn the microphone on?
Sure.
You know, there's a lot of talk about, it's almost, you know,
I wouldn't remain consistent if I didn't say this is completely out of process. Just wanted this.
sorry. But there's like a lot of innuendo here about, you know, hiding things and, you know, making things not available to you. But I know you came to the first meeting. You're always welcome to one of our meetings.
Is the data you provided me from your committee through Trustee Ugrinsky, was it accurate?
I believe our original budget was accurate.
No.
That is
The
the
form I
spending that we
received
need.
today with the tax rate saying 7.41%. It's not, well, it didn't say tax levy. It says tax rate.
I can't answer to that because I didn't
Well, so,
see
but,
it.
and again, so that's why, you know, when I make it public, you'll be able to make a comment on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
But you can always be at any meeting you want.
Clearly, going forward, there needs to be oversight.
Why is that?
Well, you presented a 41% budget increase.
Right, which we think, we're gonna have that conversation next year. So when you guys say, I didn't know anything about this, then be forewarned right now that we're gonna have the same conversation next year, because I'll guarantee you, you're gonna run over things next year, because you cut this freaking budget so much to go back to your constituents and say, look at what I saved you. You're not telling them what you're putting them at risk for. That's why we came with a realistic budget to say, this is what we're gonna need to spend, so you can be comfortable, and we do not.
So a realistic budget, when we have declining revenues, is to add $700,000 worth of salaries. That's a realistic budget? Well, and that's why you and I we'll disagree on that, but
Yeah.
that's not a realistic budget.
Carl, use the
Adding $700,000 worth of
Microphone, please. Thank you.
We'll do
a
whatever.
new hires when you have declining revenues in the village.
Right, and we also had the parking meters cut from us when we originally said, hey, you know, that's one of our biggest things where we can help with.
And that's where you and I agree, because that's why I fought to have those parking meters put back to where they were. And we made a vote on those parking meters, not knowing the information from the Budget Committee. And that's why we were cranky, because we did not have that information. Had that information been presented to us at any of the work sessions, we probably wouldn't have made those votes. So I agree. You know what? You and I are in agreement on that.
I agree with the increase in the parking meters, but also I just think you're cutting expenses to a point where it's going to hurt the village. And you know, you talk about contingencies. You know, $40,000. You know, as a reserve. We didn't try to create reserves in one shot. You know, by 500 grand for the year. We were like, you know, we hope that we budget, you know, our revenue reasonably or conservatively, and we try to keep, you know, where are we going to land with our expenses based upon history, based upon a lot of input from the department heads, and you had several meetings with them, and you know, that's what the number came out to. You know, it's nothing where we said, you know, hey, let's pack some money away here, let's pack some money away here. I really
I
felt
don't think
strongly.
anybody's making that accusation. What we're
Well,
saying
it
is
sounds like
that if you're
it's-
gonna, if you're gonna hire 4 new hires and $700,000 worth of additional expenses on the village in a declining revenue, that's, to me, is not really good practice for budget. That's not how you should do it. And again, you know what? The community agrees with it. So, and we'll deal with the consequences of it as this next year goes forward.
Okay,
And
so
so will the
somebody
community.
complains that says, you know, my snow's not picked up this year, and they say, well, we really don't have any money enough in the budget for that. You gonna take that phone call?
I take all phone calls and emails, sir.
Okay, that's great. Because I think we're gonna have the same conversation next year.
Let's hope not.
And you're gonna put more stuff on to Stephen about, you know, reporting back to you about, you know, things that go over budget and things like that. If you never worked in the accounting field, you don't realize how much time it takes to crank numbers in 7 or 8 different scenarios that we talked about on Monday night. You know, oh, we're going to do 7A or 7B. How about 8B, 8B, 8? It was all over the place, trying to get you guys to a point where we'd actually pass a budget on time. And you're putting that all on him. And now we finally got a budget, but now you want even more reporting when he's only, what, you had yourself and one staff person. You're still trying to pay bills, you're trying to fix the books, you're trying to do the audit. It's not an easy turnaround in an accounting division, especially when you're so concerned about getting it right and giving you information that you can actually use. You know, so, I mean, hats off to this guy because he's done a fantastic job over the last 3 years. He's brought us so far towards fiscal responsibility. And yes, I agree with all of you. I think there has to be more discussion between budget and finance and you, so you know what's going on. We get your input. We know what projects you want to see funded. Work together on it. But you know, the Facebook posts and things like that just like attack. It doesn't get anything done, and it makes us look like we're not doing a job that's worth something. You know, so you know, we work hard to do what's right for the village, and we really felt that budget that was prepared was right for the village. Yes, spending more money, making the village better for the future. That's it.
Thank you. And what I can
Thanks.
also say, I can answer one of Ms. Patterson's questions about the interns. We have a near CPA working as an intern in our Treasury office who is crunching numbers for the next 3 to 5 fiscal years about what to project what this looks like, and in a way that is expert and highly qualified. So we're grateful to the intern. That's just one thing that she is doing. She's also helping reconcile numbers and finances at the country club as a near CPA. How many of the CPA tests has she passed, Stephen?
Is that in the resolution?
I just asked the treasurer a question.
She's passed 2 and taken the 3rd, and the 4th will be this summer.
For $20 an hour.
Good for her.
So it's awesome.
That's great.
If we're
Thank you.
talking about hourly rates, let's just, I just want to say that the Budget and Finance Committee gives their time freely, and every single one of those meetings at their rack rates would be about $2,500 an hour.
Astronomical.
You
No
know,
doubt.
like, we are so fortunate to have these folks working this hard
No doubt.
on all of this to help us get to where we need to get.
So, Stephen, just can you go back to this resolution 28 and 29 and just what happened here? Tell us what caused this resolution to be on the agenda today.
For clarification, Mayor, I think we're on resolution 27.
Yeah.
27.
Oh. Gotta put my glasses on to see that 28 is not a 9.
The quick answer is there were a number of unplanned expenses that occurred, a lot of which are in the highway DPW department. I think near 200,000 of this is just in their department alone because of what happened with the winter storms. There were trucks that were damaged. There were, I could go through the list, but there was a variety of issues that were not planned, that were not budgeted for, that came and just popped up. There are, when it comes to attorney expenses, there are a number of items that get put before the village attorneys, all of them that are not planned for, that just happened. And I'm the treasurer, so if they need to spend the money, it gets spent because it has to get done regardless. I can't take the money to pay the village attorney out of a payroll account. You know, that's just bad accounting. So when you pay the bills, you look at where you're at, and then you try and determine, you know, where we can cover these expenses from. It's difficult to put stuff like this together on a routine, every couple weeks basis. Sometimes you have to just wait, especially when we're going through the budget and we're trying to get all of that done, to come up with this particular probably took half a day alone just to create this. So it's just hard to do. I can say, to Trustee Hill's question, the monthly financials are posted up through February. I have to get March done, but they record they have all of this information. They tell you where all of the expenses are at. It's under my page. I could send it, if the board prefers, I could send it directly to them before it gets posted online, so that you have it in email. But that is something that I do to try and make sure that those financials are out there, that it's, here's our fund balance for all of our funds, here's our expenses for capital, country club, general, this is where we're at. And it includes what the balances are for every one of the accounts.
The one thing I want to add to that, and Stephen, what the treasurer said about not wanting to alter lines that are going over, so that we have a historical basis for understanding which lines are going over and which lines are under, and we're able to reallocate those funds. But to Trustee Hill's earlier ask, all of the work that has been done by the treasurer's office and the attempts we're making at automation, so that some of the manual efforts to get to these analyses is lower, because he is a two-person department, because technically Lynn is payroll, and not part of that analysis, is getting us to a point where we will be able to provide a report that says, for this department, here's the budget and here's our actual spend year to date. That has been something that was never able to come out of Edmonds, and so was a manual exercise for him every time we were doing those departmental reviews. So my goal is to just make that in an understandable way, something that's in our monthly public meeting packets, right? But it's taken a tremendous amount of effort to get here. So I don't want you to think we're not still driving towards that.
Mayor, if I may, to Trustee Hill's concern about the sidewalk repairs and maintenance, may I recommend a change, and I can correct something perhaps at the work session or at the May meeting, agenda meeting, that could not take that 20,000 away?
Sure.
Okay. Would like to amend this budget transfer to eliminate the reduction of line item A 5410.460 sidewalk repair and maintenance by 20,000, and eliminate the corresponding increase for line item A 3120.130 code enforcement overtime by the equal $20,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll figure out the overtime in 2 weeks.
Do you need us to motion to amend that? Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Then we have to do the underlying resolution, right?
So we can make these sidewalk repairs now?
Yes, I'll work with DPW to get that going.
Or someone will?
I have a budget meeting scheduled for tomorrow at 2 o'clock, so it will be discussed.
Okay. Thank you. So, what's next?
Still have to vote on 27.
We have to vote on 27.
We voted on
I
the
think we have to
amendment. We didn't
amend
vote.
27 now, minusing 20,000.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
You did the line, but now you have to do this
Three,
resolution.
399, 300.
399, 300.
Does clerk have to read the whole thing again? For that.
Want to read it again, Sylvia, as amended?
Resolution number 27, 42926, resolution authorizing a general fund budget transfer to reallocate $399,300 available through expense reductions to correct over-budget general fund line items by authorizing Treasurer GAFCA to perform attached budget transfer number 52 with the exception, as amended, with the exception of A 5410.46, $20,000, and A 3120.13, code enforcement overtime, $20,000.
Motion?
Second, but shouldn't it be 399, 390?
Yeah.
Yeah, not 300.
Thank you, Trustee Giuliano.
399, 390 should be the amount.
Yep.
Thank
Okay.
you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 28, 42926, resolution to set the budget for the completed Station Street, New York State Empire State Development Group grant as outlined in the grant disbursement agreement by authorizing Treasurer GAFCA to perform attached budget amendment number 119 as follows. Increase revenue line item H3089, other general government aid, by $306,042. Increase expense line item H8997, 596 Station Street by $203,878.13, and increase expense line item H9950, 0.9 interfund transfer by $102,163.87. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Resolution number 29, 42926, resolution approving the check register and warrants dated April 29th, 2026, as presented by Treasurer GAFCA and as approved by Claims Auditor Goodwin. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution number 30, 42926, resolution to enter into executive session at 9:24 PM to discuss a contract negotiation. May I have a motion?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. We will not be coming back.